Good morning. It is 5 a.m., and I'm not Joan Jones with your top stories. We'll have traffic, we'll have weather coming up here shortly. Central Command says U.S. forces have now hit 10,000 targets in Iran, destroying nearly all of its largest Navy ships. But Iran says the Strait of Hormuz, the key shipping route for oil and gas, remains closed to enemy ships, fueling growing concern about long-term prices. ABC's Sophie Flay has the latest.
The Postal Service, for the first time, now plans to impose an 8% fuel surcharge on packages, possibly beginning next month. Diesel prices are up 40% since the war began. Some truckers, delivering everything from lumber to machinery to gardening supplies, are now charging up to 40 cents more per mile. One analyst calls it an off-the-charts increase.
Legal experts now say they expect a flood of lawsuits over social media addiction after yesterday's jury decision in California, where they found Meta and YouTube liable for a 20-year-old woman's mental distress. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani has her take on things.
What stood out to me is the fact that the plaintiffs in this case were able to get around the immunities under federal law. And I'm talking about Section 230 of the Communications and Decency Act that says that big tech, they're not liable for the content on their platforms. But this is different. The lawyers were able to successfully argue that the apps themselves are dangerous.
Back here in Nashville, a man with a machete robbed a woman who was walking near downtown on Tuesday. Metro Police say the suspect, Fred Johnson, approached a 26-year-old woman on Shelby Avenue at South 2nd Street. This happened in the morning. This guy demanded her stuff, and he later told cops that he needed her money for drugs. Surveillance cameras captured the robbery, and police shared the guy's description, and they caught him pretty quickly. The woman's stolen purse and other belongings were recovered and returned to her. He was charged with aggravated robbery, and at the time of this incident, he was out on bond from a March 15th arrest. Let's turn now to the market numbers report. It's brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. They are online at beaconcm.com. With this morning's report, here's Jim Ryan.
Equities investors gained back a little more ground Wednesday, sending the Dow 305 points higher to 46,429. The S&P 500 picked up 0.5% on the day. The Nasdaq Composite added 0.75%. Before the first bomb fell on Iran, U.S. energy costs were already rising. Now that's being reflected in a 1.3% increase in import prices. The Commerce Department also reports higher prices for food and consumer goods. They went by names like Financial Education Services and United Wealth Education, and they were all scams. The Federal Trade Commission is sending out checks totaling $11 million to victims of those fraudulent credit repair services. And McDonald's is diving into the world of K-pop demon hunters. The fast food chain is offering meals inspired by the Netflix film. One centers on Huntrix, another on the Saja Boys. There's even a Derpy McFlurry for Derpy the Tiger.
Let's take a look real quick at the stock futures before the opening bell. The Dow down 328, the S&P down 51, the Nasdaq, it's down 218. We've got your traffic and weather coming up next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. If only traffic looked like this all the time in the Nashville area. No accidents, no breakdowns, no delays, no nothing. It looks beautiful out. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.506 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and good morning to you. Hope you are doing well, and welcome on in to a Thursday. It is March 26th, and of course the war does rage on. We've got all the latest on that. YouTube, they have lost that lawsuit. You heard Jay Harper talking about that, and you heard the Red Eye guys talking about that earlier as well. That is a very, very big story as it relates to social media, so we'll talk about that as well. We do have a lot going on. Let's just to get right to it. By the way, thank you, Jay Harper, for showing up this morning. I know that 5 o'clock in the morning comes very early indeed. Now, President Trump gave a big old speech last night. The topics were ripped from today's headlines, and one of the things that he spoke about, it is very important. You know, the Democrats, they always talk about as it relates to gun control and, you know, some of these other things. If we could save just one life, right? The Democrats always talk about that, trying to restrict the Second Amendment and so forth. If we could just save one life. Well, that apparently doesn't really register for the Democrats when we start talking about lives taken by illegal aliens. And we all know what happened in Chicago. President Trump spoke about this last night, the death, of course, of Sheridan Gorman.
But in our quest to restore public safety, we also need accountability for corrupt Democrat officials who conspire to obstruct federal law. Less than 1 week ago, a precious 18-year-old college student named Sheridan Gorman was shot and killed while walking in a park innocently. The illegal alien monster charged was, is total animal. Remember when Nancy Pelosi got angry because I used the word animal in describing a savage killer? We were okay with it. Didn't bother me at all. The illegal alien monster charged with Sheridan's brutal murder had come illegally from Venezuela, had been released into our country by sleepy Joe Biden. He had no idea what the hell he was doing.
Yeah, not once, but twice. They had two opportunities to deport him. You know this. We've been talking about this for the last couple of days. And the authorities, whether we're talking about Chicago, the Biden administration, they didn't take advantage of those opportunities to deport this guy. And now, yes, we have another innocent person killed. And so this is why we need to continue to do what we're doing related to ICE. And somebody actually said to me, well, didn't, Donald Trump, didn't he send ICE to Chicago? And I said, yes, he did. Donald Trump did send ICE to Chicago. The guy was there in Chicago at the time. But remember what happened in Chicago, where you did have the local authorities. You've got Brandon Johnson, of course, let's go Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, and Governor Pritzker. And they tried to prevent the Trump administration from doing their jobs of trying to, get the criminals off the street and find the illegal aliens as well. And so the problem is that when local authorities don't cooperate with the federal authorities, it's nearly impossible to catch guys like this Venezuelan that killed this poor woman, Sheridan Gorman, this Jose Medina. The guy had a warrant out for his arrest, but when the mayor and the governor of Chicago and Illinois make it nearly impossible for ICE to do their jobs, these guys escape. And so what did Brandon Johnson do specifically? Let's go Brandon Johnson. Signed orders to block ICE from using city property, actively and publicly criticized and pushed back against ICE, and advocated against ICE publicly at every turn. So I want to play this audio piece. I did play this yesterday, but it's a video actually. But I didn't get a chance to focus on it. But they are the lies that were told by Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson as he is asked if he will apologize to the family of Sheridan Gorman. This is what he had to say.
We're going to continue to pray for those victims.
Will you take this opportunity to apologize to Sheridan's parents for the policies that you have promoted that directly caused her death? That suspect would not be in the city, would not be in the country, but for your policies. Will you take this opportunity to apologize?
Well, again, I believe that we're all grieving the loss of Sheridan and other folks who have lost their lives because of senseless violence. And let's just be very clear, between the Safety Act and the Welcoming City Ordinance, the Welcoming City Ordinance was passed 40 years ago by the first black mayor in the history of Chicago. And the Safety Act was passed under the governor, at that time, who was a Republican, Governor Rauner. Thank you for your questions.
So he is lying there. He's lying or obfuscating. And this is what I didn't really get a chance to delve into yesterday. But he said that the Welcoming City Ordinance in Chicago was passed by the first black mayor of Chicago. And as I said yesterday at this point, what does it matter, the mayor's skin color? That's number one. But you know what the legislation does or did, back 40 years ago? They're the sanctuary city policies of Chicago. So the Welcoming City Ordinance passed, again, air quoting, by the first black mayor of Chicago. Well, is Brandon Johnson saying that because it was passed by the first black mayor of Chicago, that it shouldn't be under scrutiny for what it does? Which is, of course, it means that Chicago is a sanctuary city, and all of those sanctuary city policies ultimately end up leading to the deaths of people like Sheridan Gorman. So I don't give a crap whether the skin color of the mayor who was able to pass the Welcoming City Ordinance was black, white, red, green, or yellow. It doesn't matter. We still have Americans that are dying. The other thing that it does, among others, is it bars Chicago Police Department from cooperating with federal immigration enforcement and restricts ICE access to detainees and city facilities. So when Medina, the Venezuelan who killed Sheridan Gorman, was arrested in June of 2023, because of the just mentioned policies, the guy just walks. No interaction with ICE. Cops couldn't even ask him about his immigration status. Illinois itself, as you know, is a sanctuary state. Now, you also heard him say, because, this is Brandon Johnson, and this is what Democrats do. They lie and they obfuscate, just like Iran. So you heard him say the Safety Act in Illinois was passed by a Republican. It wasn't. Now, there were some things that the Republican governor did with bail and sentencing reforms and commissions, but it was J.B. Pritzker, the current Democrat governor, who came in and expanded it massively and controversially with the sweeping anti-law enforcement, pro-illegal alien, and pro-criminal safety act, which passed the Democrat-run state legislature. In other words, Brandon Johnson, simply put, he's not telling the truth. And he's trying to lie and obfuscate his way out of responsibility for the death of Sheridan Gorman, when I believe that he's got blood on his hands, as do the Democrats. And, you've got Alejandro Mayorkas, you've got Joe Biden, of course. I mean, I could go on and on. By the way, did you see the new snowplow in Chicago? Did you see this? Wait till you do. I've got the video and also what the Chicago mayor has to say about it. Really bad timing and a really bad look in Chicago. That is straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Jay Harper is in for Joan Jones, and we've got the traffic right now on WTN.
Yes, sir, Dan. Man, we're looking good. All systems are go traffic-wise. No problems to report. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jay. As far as your weather for today, partly sunny, breezy, and warm. A high approaching the 2007 record of 86 degrees. So that is... Sam put in the notes, of course, but we don't do climate alarmism here. Thank you, Sam. I always love just reading the weather cold and seeing Sam's editorial notes on my weather script. Thank you, Sam.
I try to set you up with successful jokes, but okay.
Thank you very much, as opposed to the jokes that I usually tell. Thank you very much, Sam. I appreciate it. By the way, so very quickly, and I do have some video here. So there's a new snowplow in the city of Chicago, and they unveiled it yesterday. And I'm just going to go ahead and play the video. If you're watching on Super Talk TV, I've got a lot of video today. If you'd like to see some of the things that we are playing on the radio, you can. You can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, 99.7, WTN.com, our website, and so on and so forth. We are everywhere. And, well, yeah, Chicago has a brand new snowplow.
Quote, abolish ICE.
That's right. It's called Abolish ICE. Chicago's new snowplow, just a couple of days after the murder of Sheridan Gorman by an illegal alien from Venezuela, they unveiled their new snowplow, and it is called Abolish ICE. You, my friends, cannot make this up.
Quote, abolish ICE. It's funny and it's clever. What are citizens saying both about naming the plow and about ICE's actions in the city?
Well, Reverend Al, from the very beginning of this administration, I made a commitment to ensure that we protect working people. But really, this was really about protecting our democracy. And, when...
You know what? Every time I start hearing these things, first of all, and you could just, no pun intended, but you can shoot holes right through everything that Brandon Johnson is saying. First of all, we wanted to protect our working people. Really? So Sheridan Gorman, she was a student at Loyola, and so why did she not deserve protection? I mean, that's always going to be the question when you hear some of these ridiculous statements by the brain trust of Al Sharpton and Let's Go Brandon Johnson when they say really dumb, stupid things like that. It's easy to just start coming back at them. Now Al Sharpton, he would never come back and say, well, okay, so if you were trying to protect the people of Chicago, then why didn't you get this guy off of the streets? I mean, clearly, he was an illegal alien. He was on his way towards, no doubt, a life of crime. I mean, clearly, you've got a guy who was an illegal alien. Then he starts shoplifting. They didn't do anything about those two. You know what ultimately will come next, and that is that their crimes begin to increase. And so on the picture, if you're not watching Super Talk TV, if you're listening on the radio, thank you. But basically, the side of the snowplow, big lettering, it says abolish ICE. And so, yeah, the brain trust of Reverend Al Sharpton and Brandon Johnson, the lack of self-awareness, it is astounding. I mean, isn't it? Because had they not been abolishing ICE in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois, then Sheridan Gorman could still be alive because Jose Medina could have been picked up. If the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois would have allowed ICE to simply do their jobs. Here's more from Brandon Johnson.
And, the Trump administration moved on, the big nasty bill. Now, I don't know if enough people actually realize this, but the amount of money that the ICE division of our government has received as a result of this administration is quite significant. In fact, there are only two other entities that have a larger budget than ICE. It's the United States military and it's China's military. And he has used it as a privatized force to enact terror.
So what would you call, I would say to Brandon Johnson, what would you call what Sheridan Gorman and her friends felt when old Jose Medina Squared there was running around with a gun and shooting them in cold blood? I mean, listen, I'm just asking a question. So, yeah, the lack of self-awareness at naming this snowplow as Abolish ICE on, just the days after a guy was allowed to roam free in the city of Chicago as the city of Chicago blocking ICE from doing their job, ultimately ending up that guy killing Sheridan Gorman. Just a horrible, horrible part of the story. And again, just for Al Sharpton and Brandon Johnson to sort of lose that fact in the story as they celebrate a snowplow called Abolish ICE is just silly. And the Democrats, They do, Sam. They have a different worldview than Republicans. They prefer illegal aliens over Americans. They prefer immigration policies that include zero consequences for breaking our laws so that they can stay.
Yeah, he's talking about protecting working people. She hadn't really had a chance to get plugged in Chicago because she was a freshman in college. But where she was from in New York, she was part of the Big Buddy program. She served as a manager for the school's field hockey and lacrosse teams. She coached with the Yorktown Athletic Club where she was from in New York, where she had been an athlete herself, and she was able to help, other younger kids get involved in sports and athletics.
Yeah.
And was deeply involved in Cru, which is the Christian campus ministry at Loyola, which some people forget it's a Catholic school. So that's why he doesn't care. She's all of those things.
Well, and remember, and we talked about this earlier in the week, her sister goes to Vanderbilt here in Nashville, and her sister was part of the, if I remember right, the Young Republicans Club, or one of those Republican clubs on the University of Vanderbilt. So
one of the quotes, by the way, from her group.
Yeah.
Someone who constantly invested in the souls of others.
Wow. The best of us being taken out by the worst. And that is what the Democrats are celebrating with this abolish ICE snowplow. It is incredible. By the way, we did also have the audio yesterday of J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, blaming Donald Trump. We did play this. I think we played it yesterday. I don't remember. But just to put a cap on this. Very silly indeed.
There have been real failures. Those failures, of course, extend beyond the borders of Illinois. That's their national failures, a failure to have comprehensive immigration reform, a failure of the president to follow his own edict to go after the worst of the worst. There have been real failures.
So now a Chicago alderman is eviscerating, and I mean eviscerating, Governor Pritzker. And I don't know, where am I at on time here, Sam? Can I play this? I think it's a minute long. I'd rather just go ahead and play it here so that I don't break up the content. I don't have to reset everything. So I'm going to go ahead and it's a Flesh the Format Thursday. That's what it is. Okay, fine. Sam is like, just get on with it. Okay, fine, I'll get on with it. This is a Chicago alderman taking out Governor J.B. Pritzker as, they deal with the controversy and the horror that was and is the murder of Sheridan Gorman. Listen to what this alderman has to say about life in Chicago.
Donald Trump.
Well, he's absolutely blaming Donald Trump. And listen, I'm not a rabid Trump supporter or hater. But if you're going to blame the federal government, then blame it where this problem began, which was under the Biden-Harris administration that allowed 15 million people from South America, Central America, and across the oceans to come through our southern borders, manipulate asylum, be poorly vetted, and then scattered to the 7 winds of the United States. That's where this problem started, and I have yet to hear a single Democrat hold Biden and Harris accountable for what has happened, because they knew who they were allowing in, they have their information, they vetted them poorly and still let them go even when they were criminals. And to say it's Donald Trump's fault simply because we refuse to work with them to go after those high priority targets. There are 2,000 priority targets in the city of Chicago right now who we know are dangers, courtesy of the Biden-Harris administration that vetted them, but we will not allow the Trump administration to remove them simply because we don't want to look as though we're capitulating to him.
Raymond Lopez is a Chicago alderman, and you just heard him say 2,000 priority targets in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. And again, I go back to if we could simply save one life, which is what the Democrats always like to talk about. It is 5:25. Jay's got the news coming up at 5:30. Jay.
Yes, sir, Dan. A Republican effort to fund the Department of Homeland Security has been introduced. So where does that bill stand? We'll let you know. And a Metro Center warehouse fire overnight. We'll have that coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 5:30, and I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll have the latest weather and traffic coming up. Senate Democrats Wednesday blocked a Republican-led effort to fund the Department of Homeland Security. The proposal would fund most of Homeland Security, but not one main part of ICE. Democrats are still demanding reforms to ICE enforcement. Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy said Senate Democratic leaders are changing their demands in negotiations.
If Senator Schumer keeps changing his position, we've got to just remove him from the process.
Now we move overseas, where Iran's press TV reports that Iran has rejected a 15-point U.S. proposal to end the war. And officials in Tehran say that publicly they have denied any talks with the U.S. have even taken place. The White House warned Wednesday that President Trump is prepared to step up military operations if Tehran will not make a deal to end the war. Former Undersecretary of State and Ambassador to Lebanon and Jordan, David Hale, he tells ABC that Trump's 15-point plan addresses the concerns that many presidents have had over the years about Iran.
We will now see whether this kind of military pressure will actually change the direction of Iranian behavior or not. But I do think that it is, in my experience, a regime that only understands the language of force, not diplomacy.
Crews back here in Nashville responded to a large fire at a warehouse in the Metro Center area overnight. The fire was reported at about 11 o'clock last night at the Det Beverages warehouse in the 300 block of Great Circle Road. The fire appeared to begin after a tractor trailer pulled into a dock there and then just burst into flames. The fire then spread to other parked semis and into the facility. No injuries have been reported, and there's no additional information that has been immediately released. But if you've seen photos online of this fire, it's pretty significant. That's the latest news. We've got traffic. We've got weather. They're up next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. At 5:36 this morning, all traffic looks great in the Nashville area. No delays, no breakdowns. Again, we're flying right here this morning. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.537 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I do have the Super Text line open, 615-737-9986. I kind of sometimes, Jay Harper and Sam, what I do is I will at times just kind of scroll down if I don't know why. Sometimes I'm a little bored or whatever. So 4574 sent in a really hostile nastygram. Do you want to hear it? This was last night. This was last night. At 7:22, 4574 said, "You all are fake news, you antagonist. You're starting more and more to lean to the left." Now, I don't know who he's talking to. I'm positive he's not talking about Murphy's show, and I don't know who else was here yesterday during Matt's show, but I don't know why it is that they would be saying such scurrilous things, at least, for most of the day parts here. So there is a lot of issues, though. A lot of people are upset with not only the Trump administration. I will tell you that there are some super texters who are beginning to lose faith in the president. Unfortunately, that is just a sign of the times. When you do things that are very consequential and you do things that are very important but also very controversial, well, then, yeah, people do start to lose faith. I got this note from Michael, though. Now, Michael was a guy who lived in Chicago, moved to Tennessee, then moved back to Chicago. And he's listening, I guess, in Chicago. And he sent this note to me on social media. "Hey, Dan, as you know, my wife and I moved back to my hometown of Chicago from Thompson Station a couple of years ago. While I'm glad we moved back to be around family and friends, we are ready to move back to Tennessee due to everything you are talking about this morning. It is absolutely disgusting what is going on here in Chicago." He talks about how he has a son who works in Kentucky. So this is another reason why they would like to move back to the great state of Tennessee. And he ends by saying, "These people up here in Chicago are insane." I mean, when you listen to Brandon Johnson, when you listen to Governor Pritzker, I mean, that is absolutely right. I don't know how you can look at the things that they say and look at the things that they do and how they legislate and run cities and states and think that, this is anything but insane. It's clearly not normal thinking, but for the Democrats, this is now what they believe in.
Jay, correct me on this. Have the Bears settled that they're going to move to Indiana?
Oh, goodness. As far as I know, that is still a negotiating tactic. I don't think anything definitive has come down the line just yet.
That would the icing on the cake for Chicago. Like, it's so bad that your own football team had to move to another state.
Yeah.
In order to operate the way they want to.
Well, I
guess fans not get jumped on the way to the game.
I don't know the crux of the negotiations, if they're trying or vying for, tax breaks or new stadium or, what's going on with that. But you know what? I mean, Chicago I used to go to Chicago when I lived in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'd go to Chicago like once a month. And it used to be such a great city. I wouldn't go there anymore. It would be, and I'm sure that there are some very nice things about Chicago, but for the life of me, maybe it's just a new awareness of how insane the city has become. But, to name their new snowplow, abolish ICE, and proudly proclaim that and announce that a couple of days after a woman is killed by an illegal alien. And, they and their anti-ICE policies led to this guy still being in the city and allowed to run rampant, run free, and then kill an American. And we see this all too often. It's just like, It is such backwards thinking. 3157. After 7 is Mark Levin, right? Yes. After 7 is Mark Levin, although I don't believe that Mark Levin is starting to move more and more to the left. I don't know. I mean, sometimes we have disagreements among conservatives, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're moving to the left, and that may be directed at one particular person on the staff. All right, I want to play some, moving right along, I want to play some audio. Did you hear Jimmy Kimmel last night? Or I don't know if this was last night or earlier this week. Nobody really watches Kimmel anymore. What they do is, the clips go viral or whatever. But he had a nasty comment about Markwayne Mullin. Now, Markwayne Mullin, he has now replaced Kristi Noem. And the late night host, Jimmy Kimmel, had a very nasty thing to say about Markwayne Mullin. Listen to this.
Rudy Giuliani might not be with us much longer, but don't worry, Trump's got a whole new generation of thinkers lined up, including his newly confirmed Secretary of Homeland Security, Markwayne, Chuck Mike, Bruce Dave Mullin. Maybe Mellon's better. He is the now former senator of Oklahoma. Before he was elected to the Senate, Markwayne Mullin was a low-level MMA fighter and a plumber. That's right. We have a plumber protecting us from terrorism now. It worked for Super Mario. Why not Markwayne? But honestly, I mean,
leave it to Jimmy Kimmel to. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with plumbers, obviously. Matter of fact, I would, when Jimmy Kimmel finally gets his butt fired from ABC, I would be willing to bet that plumbers will have better job opportunities than Jimmy Kimmel.
I just want to know what happens the next time, the stuff he's full of clogs the toilet. What's he going to do?
Right. That is exactly. You know what? If you're a plumber in New York or LA, wherever he does his show, you ought to just boycott his house. What you ought to do. But it's that typical snotty elitism from people like Jimmy Kimmel. The amazing story behind Markwayne Mullin is one for the ages. And, one of the things that Kimmel does is he basically takes a man's entire lifetime of experience and whittles it down to his trade before he was a member of Congress. Now, first of all, Markwayne Mullin, he rose in the political ranks from a congressman to a U.S. senator to the Secretary of Homeland Security. Now, good for him. He also, by the way, overcame stuttering as a kid. He had clubfoot. Now, do you know what clubfoot is? I do. It's basically if you are born with your leg pointed like inward and downward at birth, and it's fixed by like therapy and procedures, I guess. But Markwayne Mullin, he has been able to overcome clubfoot and stuttering to become one of the highest ranking administrators in the United States government. He also expanded his family's plumbing business, and that plumbing business is now one of the largest service companies in Oklahoma and the region, and he's started other businesses as well. In other words, memo to Jimmy Kimmel, Markwayne Mullin is an incredibly accomplished guy, and all you did is you, number one, you're basically disparaging plumbers. And number two, you are intentionally disparaging Markwayne Mullin by, sort of reducing everything that he has accomplished into, well, he's nothing but a plumber.
You actually disparage our own governor here in Tennessee, whose family started a home services company with Lee Company.
It's exactly right. High-profile Republicans swiftly criticizing Kimmel's remarks as elitist and dismissive towards working-class Americans. Senator Ted Cruz quipping, "I prefer plumbers to woke and unfunny comedians," while Senator Cynthia Lummis accused Hollywood elites of showing disdain for those who take on important national roles. Meghan McCain contrasted the criticism of Mullin's plumbing background with the praise for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's bartending past, and Representative Mike Collins defending tradespeople as the backbone of the U.S. economy. And that is what he did, what Jimmy Kimmel did. It's obviously disgusting.
Plumbing takes actual skill. There's a reason there's 10 million bartenders.
Bartending is? Are you saying that the people saying that bartending is not a skill? I think bartending is a skill.
It is.
Yeah.
In comparison to plumbing.
I've never been a bartender and I've never been a plumber. I would say that plumbing would take more.
I've had to do both.
Okay, you know what? Okay, if we're gonna compare the two, and we can, plumbing takes mechanical skill, right?
Physical, strenuous labor.
Manual labor.
Yeah.
You got to turn a wrench and do
also,
all those plumbing things.
A lot of the time, poop water.
Yes, that takes some fortitude.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I would say that
and drains with hair.
Yeah, and I would say that bartending is
people do shots with their customers.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just thinking about knowing how to make all those drinks. Like,
That's
I don't know
true.
how bartenders do it. I mean, did you see the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise? It ain't that easy, youngling.
Well,
it's just not.
I'm a simple man. You pour the whiskey on the ice in a glass and you hand it to me.
Well, anyway, whatever. By the way, he was confirmed this week. You know, we could do a daily Dan poll. Which is harder, plumbing or learning how to be a plumber or learning how to be a bartender? I can promise you it's harder to be a plumber. That I can tell you that. It is harder to be a plumber. But anyway, moving right along from there. But so people are just absolutely, blasting Kimmel every step of the way. And by the way, they should. They should. Markwayne Mullin, he was confirmed, by the way, to replace Kristi Noem. And this was earlier this week, and I didn't dwell on it. I mentioned it, but this is part of what he had to say.
365 days beside you. No one's going to outwork me, and I'm not going to let any of them outwork me. The president has entrusted me with this, and failure is not an option. And so thank you so much, Mr. President, for this opportunity. I won't let you down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gotta love it. I'm a Markwayne Mullin fan. I am. I'm a fan of people who overcome things. And I'm a fan of people who have to, fight and claw and scratch their way up to where they are. And that is most certainly Markwayne Mullin. Now, Jay Harper, this is for you. Major League Baseball season began yesterday, correct?
That is correct, sir.
And so what that means is obviously we have the opening day today. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a full slate of games today, correct. There was just Yankees-Giants last night to kind of get the season going.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, just about everybody playing today.
And is it going to be a big baseball season? We got a lot going on this year with, various players and so forth. Is everybody excited about it?
Well, yeah, but there is some trepidation because the collective bargaining agreement is going to expire here in the next season or so. So there's some...
They're not talking about another strike.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Well, owners, many of them demanding a salary cap, and the baseball union is the strongest union in all of professional sports.
Right.
And that there could be.
Hey, can I ask this question?
There could be a fallout because of that.
Can I ask this question? Do the owners have a revenue cap?
You mean salary cap?
No, revenue cap.
Yeah, in other words, they're not limited as to how much they can make.
Exactly. So why should the players have a salary cap?
Well, other sports, as we know, have done it: hockey, football, etc.
Whatever.
So, yeah, I get your point.
I'm on team players here. Anyway, there was an incredible moment. This was last night during the game between the Giants and the Yankees, where a guy by the name of Gerald Wilson, I believe that's how you say his name, his first name, Gerald Wilson, sang the national anthem. This is amazing.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallant silently streaming, and the rockets ring clear, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
I mean, it's just
Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
one of the most amazing things about that, besides the clear ability to sing the national anthem, I don't know if you saw this, but they had fireworks in the form of the American flag. And this was in San Francisco, so over the bay. Just an amazing, amazing performance of the national anthem last night.
And let us not forget, that is just a, well, I don't mean just, but he's a member of the military. He's a Navy seaman.
He is. He was wearing his naval uniform, as a matter of fact. So, by the way, good for him. And people are, I don't know, I don't think they're yelling at me or you, Sam, but people are saying, well, don't disparage bartenders. I'm not disparaging anybody.
I'm not disparaging anyone. I'm just saying in relation to, performance as a representative of the United States government, specifically.
Yeah.
We saw how AOC performed in Munich. It was
that was pretty bad. Munich was pretty bad. But you know what? Listen, when you need a drink, you need a bartender. And when you need a toilet fixed, you need a plumber. And they both have very important roles in our lives. I'm not much of a bartender needer, so I don't have to, really go into bars and all that. But definitely a plumber. Anyway, it is a 5:53 on Super Talk 99.7. And let's see, Jay has the news coming up at 6 o'clock, Jay.
Right you are, Dan. More on the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz. We'll have the latest there. And DHS negotiations continue, but are they really getting anywhere? We'll have those stories coming up at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
5:59, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Throw us a solid if you would, and go watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, 99.7 WTN.com. Like and subscribe. And if you're late to the game, you missed the 5 o'clock hour, the 6 o'clock hour, you can always go and watch the segments or the hours that you missed. And you can always download our podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts and anywhere else you get those podcasts, and you can download those at your leisure. Coming up after the news at 6 o'clock, well, the war in Iran does continue. What it is that they want to agree to a ceasefire. What are the big 5 things that they are demanding? And what was that big gift that Donald Trump got from Iran that we're talking about yesterday? Oh, yeah. And where is Iran getting some of their drones from? All of that and a whole lot more straight ahead. It is Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 6 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. Traffic and weather, as always, they're coming up. The head of Central Command says the U.S. is on pace to completely eliminate Iran's military manufacturing capacity. Admiral Brad Cooper also says the U.S. has zeroed in on dismantling Iran's decades-old threat to the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz. ABC News contributor and former Defense Department official Mick Mulroy on elements of the 82nd Airborne Division preparing for possible deployment.
They're asking for things like they want to have sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. Well, that's an international waterway. Obviously, the United States isn't going to accept that. But we don't even have the authority to grant sovereignty to Iran of something that doesn't belong to us. So that these things are going to have to be worked out. Hopefully, this isn't such a maximalist position that there's no way to find a diplomatic path forward, because the only other direction, in my estimation, this could take is a military escalation.
President Trump says he's, quote, pretty much not happy, unquote, with any deal to reopen DHS as negotiations continue to end the partial government shutdown. We hear now from ABC's Nicole D'Antonio.
Airport security wait times are the worst ever. Airports in Houston and Atlanta specifically are among the hardest hit, and things are expected to get worse now that we're approaching the busy end of the week and the Easter travel season. Of course, the issue is TSA agents and other Homeland Security workers have not been paid in weeks.
Back here in Nashville, a man accused of carrying out a series of shoplifting incidents across Nashville over several months was finally arrested on Tuesday night. Investigators say that Michael Mitchell, 35, he's linked to more than a dozen theft cases dating back to July of last year. Earlier incidents occurred at multiple retail stores, including, are you ready? Lowe's, Old Navy, Home Depot, Lululemon, and numerous Target locations. This guy's been doing this for almost a year. Authorities estimate, though, that more than $30,000 in merchandise has been stolen from these places just since January. The Market Numbers Report. Let's get to that for you. It's brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. You can find them online at beaconcm.com. Here's this morning's report from Jim Ryan.
Equities investors gained back a little more ground Wednesday, sending the Dow 305 points higher to 46,429. The S&P 500 picked up 0.5% on the day. The Nasdaq Composite added 0.75%. Before the first bomb fell on Iran, U.S. energy costs were already rising. Now that's being reflected in a 1.3% increase in import prices. The Commerce Department also reports higher prices for food and consumer goods. They went by names like Financial Education Services and United Wealth Education, and they were all scams. The Federal Trade Commission is sending out checks totaling $11 million to victims of those fraudulent credit repair services. And McDonald's is diving into the world of K-pop demon hunters. The fast food chain is offering meals inspired by the Netflix film. One centers on Huntrix, another on the Saja Boys. There's even a Derpy McFlurry for Derpy the Tiger.
Let's take a look at the stock futures before the opening bell. The Dow down 305, the S&P it's down 45, and NASDAQ it's down 194. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather. They're on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. We have our first traffic issue of the morning. It was bound to happen sooner or later. We have a crash. This is I-24 headed into town, and this is from the Smyrna area. We've got a crash that's blocking the left lane on 24 westbound just past Bell Road, but once you get past it, it looks great, but it's backed up already there, headed into town. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.607 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Well, President Trump is up and thumbing away on True Social. So beginning about 28 minutes ago, he's got a lot of things on his mind. And what he posted 28 minutes ago on True Social, the Iranian negotiators are very different and strange, the president says. They are begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated with zero chance of a comeback. And yet they publicly state that they are only looking at our proposal, he says, in air quotes. Wrong, he says, in all caps. They better get serious soon before it's too late, because once that happens, there is no turning back, and it won't be pretty. President President Donald J. Trump. No, thank you for your attention to this matter. I like when he uses that at the end of his posts. But that is the president some 28 minutes ago. Also, as far as let's see here, 16 minutes ago, he started talking about terminating the filibuster. He also says this was 14 minutes ago. The president. Posting on True Social, You couldn't ask for more militarily. It will be studied with envy for many years to come. And that is in air quotes or quotation marks. He is quoting Steve Yates on Fox and Friends. So the president is up. And by the way, that is true. The question is, how do we gauge what is a victory in Iran? I mean, isn't that the point? I mean, the point is we could blow up a lot of stuff, and man, have we. We have blown up a crap ton of stuff in Iran. We've sunk their ships. We've destroyed their planes. We've destroyed a bunch of missiles and manufacturing sites and the whole thing. But bottom line is, how do we gauge success? How do we say, okay, this was a victory militarily, however, politically, this was a defeat? Because you can't have that. You can have a victory militarily and you can have a defeat politically if we don't get the right leaders in Iran. And so that is part of what is going on this Thursday morning here, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, so very quickly, I've got some video here, if I could, Sam. Remember this moment from yesterday? We all sort of, I don't know, we didn't laugh at the president, but we did find this kind of funny. A lot of people did when President Trump was talking about a mysterious gift that he received from Iran.
Make a deal. They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it. So that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people.
So, and then everybody, of course, wanted to know what exactly was that gift. Headline: Trump present from Iran was safe tanker passage through the Strait of Hormuz, according to some reports this morning. The present, U.S. President Donald Trump said Iran had given Washington was allowing several fuel tankers to pass safely through the Strait of Hormuz. The Times of Israel is reporting, citing a senior Arab diplomat and a U.S. official. Trump said on Tuesday that Iran had given the United States a present worth a tremendous amount of money without providing details, but described it as related to oil and gas and the strategic waterway. The report cited an unnamed U.S. official as saying that when Washington began passing along messages to Iran through mediators over the weekend in order to test whether a diplomatic off-ramp to the war was possible, it asked Tehran to make a gesture of goodwill. In response, Iran agreed to allow a number of fuel tankers that were not tied to the U.S. or Israel through the Strait of Hormuz in order to help calm global markets. The report added, citing an unnamed Arab official. All right, so you have that. Also in the news today, we have the Iranians. They came out and they have basically dismissed the 15 or so demands made by the Trump administration in talking about a ceasefire. It just sounds like they pretty much have dismissed it outright. So that is also part of the news cycle this morning. The Hill is reporting that Iran has offered a counter proposal to end the war in the region after rejecting a ceasefire plan backed by the Trump administration. And so what is it that Iran wants? Well, leaders in Tehran are asking for sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz and a complete end to aggression from the U.S. and Israel, among other demands. I don't know, man. It sounds like giving them sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. That sounds like a big fat no. Because we know what they are capable of, and we know what they're willing and certainly able to do because they're already doing it. They say Iran will end the war at a time of its choosing and only if the conditions it has set are fulfilled. They say it will not allow Trump to determine the timing of the war's end, according to a statement made by Iran's consulate general in Mumbai. Ultimately, the Iranian response included 5 conditions for ending the war. Here they are. The acts of aggression coming to an end, ensuring the war will not recur, a payment of war damages and reparations, the ending of the war across all fronts, including involving all resistance groups, and Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. You know, this is interesting. The ending of the war across all fronts involving all resistance groups. I think that means the terrorists that they fund, right? So why in the world would we stop our efforts to stop terrorism across the Middle East? Why would we stop, our efforts against Hezbollah, for example? Why would we stop our efforts against Hamas, for example? Because we know that Iran, we know what they do. What they do is they support and pay for all of this terrorism, and that terrorism ultimately ends up killing innocent people and Americans and, of course, the members of our military. So there's a lot of no's here, and I don't see President Trump giving an inch. I don't see Iran giving much in response either. So the question is, and, I'll probably ask, Matthew Hurt. He's going to join us at 6:35 here on WTN. How would he describe success? How would you describe success? What do you want to see as a sign of victory? How do you gauge victory with this war against Iran? Because this is going to be something that we as a party and we as a nation and we as a world are going to have to decide. How do we know when this whole thing is simply put over? We've got a lot more straight ahead. It is 6:15, time to check the roads on WTN. As far as your weather goes, partly sunny today, breezy and warm, a high approaching the 2,000 record of 86 degrees. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. I really wasn't surprised by this headline. Just talking about what is going on with the war in Iran. I'm not really seeing much of an off-ramp here for either side. I'm just not. Maybe there is. I know that they continue, obviously, to talk. J.D. Vance and others are going to be heading to Pakistan to negotiate with the Iranians. Russia is secretly sending, they say, killer drones to Iran as the Kremlin gives an ominous clue, according to the Mirror. Top Iranian and Russian officials began discussing the delivery of drones in early March, just days after the United States and Israel launched strikes on Iran. A couple of officials briefed on the intelligence, telling the Financial Times a phased shipment of drones as well as food and medicine is expected to be completed by the end of the month. Asked whether Moscow is sending drones to Iran, Kremlin spokesperson said, "There's a lot of fakes going around right now. One thing is true. We are continuing our dialogue with the Iranian leadership. So, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the Russians are sending Iran drones. They've always been doing business, Russia and Iran. So this wouldn't surprise me. Moscow has been open about sending humanitarian aid, saying last week that they had delivered more than 13 tons of medicine to Iran, and those shipments do continue. Iran, just wrapping this up here, relies heavily on one-way attack drones. And that's something that we've all been talking about. You can destroy the missiles, and this is America can destroy the missiles. We can destroy the planes. We can destroy the ships. But as long as they have all of these drones, they can continue this drone warfare basically as long as they want. And the reason they can do that is because they are really cheap to produce. They're cheap, of course, to fire and to maneuver, but it costs us a lot of money to shoot these things down. That's number one. And number two, as long as they have these drones, they can continue to control the Strait of Hormuz. And so until we can figure out this drone warfare, the Iranians, they can continue with this war for basically as long as they want. And that is going to be a very, very big issue. 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. The super text line is open. We've got a lot of feedback coming in. Thank you very much. I'll get to some of those comments and some of those missives coming up. But first, Jay Harper's got the news at 6:30. Jay, what do you got coming up?
Yes, sir, Dan. More movement. Well, we hope there will be more movement. We'll have the story on what's going on and a lot of the issues you're talking about, especially with the Strait of Hormuz and the DHS. Are they going to get funded or what? We'll have those stories coming up at the bottom of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Mandis here for my friends at the Generator Super Center. Listen, we've learned, of course, it has been a very rough 2026, and we've learned that we really do need to depend on ourselves when it comes to keeping the power on for our families. And yes, for the government, they're not going to do the job, but the Generator Super Center, they can. Now, they are experts in installing these backup home standby generators. So what happens is the power goes out in your neighborhood. Well, your generator from the Generator Super Center is going to turn your power right back on. Now, these things are awesome. They feature expert installation, 24-hour monitoring as well. The Generator Super Center is not going to leave you and your family in the dark. They do have financing available. And by the way, they are the nation's #1 Generac generator dealer, the Generator Super Center. Call them and tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. That phone number is 615-879-1952. 615-879-1952. Find them online anytime. The website, GeneratorSuperCenterofNashville.com. GeneratorSuperCenterofNashville.com. Dan Mandis here. I want to tell you about my friend Dr. Jeffrey Horn and the pros at Vision for Life. Now, you know that I went through vision correction surgery procedure last year. I've never been happier. Now, it's been just over a year since I had lens replacement surgery at Vision for Life with Dr. Horn, and I can honestly say this past year of clear vision has been incredible. Now, you don't realize how much blurry vision impacts your life until it is gone. And I got to tell you that I can see clearly now, whether it is in the swimming pool, whether I'm playing sports, whatever it is. Now, I can tell you that if you've been waiting, if you've been trying to decide whether or not you want to get vision correction surgery, you've got to call my friends at Vision for Life. That phone number, 615-436-2020. The procedure is quick and painless. The recovery is fast. And yes, the results speak for themselves. So whether you are 18 or 80, Dr. Horn has a vision correction procedure that is right for your age, your lifestyle, and your eyes. Now, for me, it was lens replacement. For you, it might be LASIK, EVO, or custom lens replacement. 615-436-2020. Find them online anytime. Visionforlife.com. That is visionforlife.com. 626, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I sense, Jay Harper, I don't know if you're a big Star Wars fan, but I sense a disturbance in the force of Nashville's Morning News.
Oh my gosh!
Can you feel the disturbance in the force? The disturbance of the force is that there's a disturbance amongst producer Sam, who is feeling.
I've always thought he was disturbed, but
feeling a little defensive because people are coming after him for. They say he was disparaging bartenders. I don't believe that Sam was disparaging bartenders. The bottom line is, and I don't even know how we wandered into this topic, but. You know, look, we've all done jobs before we ended up doing whatever it is for our career. I mean, I worked at a fast food chicken place. I pumped gas for years. I was a cart boy, you know, at a big store kind of a thing, a department store. I collected the carts in the parking lot. You know, we all did things, and there's nothing wrong with being a bartender. There's also, you know, it was Jimmy Kimmel. It was Jimmy Kimmel about the whole plumber thing.
Moron disparaging hardworking folks,
right?
You know? Yeah.
But it led down to this conversation about, you know, what's more important, a bartender or a plumber? And I think they're both important. I mean, I would say that I would need a plumber far more than I would need a bartender. But we weren't disparaging bartenders at all.
No, not at all. I think there was some disparaging, quote unquote, of AOC.
Yep.
Not bartenders necessarily, but her, because, well,
she's AOC.
She's an idiot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so people are thinking that, you know, we were disparaging bartenders. No. We certainly weren't.
No, it's a hard job, especially in Nashville, because you get some of the worst of the worst. I'm not saying that at all. But I've bartended in a restaurant before, and a bar, and I've had to handle my own plumbing, and I will take as far as what I find more difficult to be handling my own plumbing.
You know, bartenders have to put up with a lot of different kinds of crap.
It's true. That's true. And there's the vomit. There's the threats. There's I get all.
And especially if you're like a good-looking bartender. You know what? I mean, just so you folks know. I almost sent my daughter to like bartending school. I mean, she wanted to go to bartending school. And I mean, I was all for it. I mean, she decided to go in another path. But, you know, if I knew anything about alcohol, I would have no problem being a bartender. I would actually probably love being a bartender. And people are sending in their nightly income, $350, $400 in tips every single night.
Yeah.
It's like, that's crazy. So, you know, if the whole radio thing doesn't work out and they finally get tired of me and kick me out the door, maybe I'll go and I'll learn how to be a bartender.
But saying you're used to working crazy hours, that's the other thing.
It's not a problem at all. All right, it is 6:30, Nashville's Morning News, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 6:30. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. We'll get you an updated forecast as well as a traffic report. President Trump says that he's pretty much not happy with any deal to reopen DHS as negotiations continue to end the partial government shutdown. ABC's Lindsay Davis spoke to Philadelphia TSA officer Maggie Sabatino. She continues reporting for duty despite the fact that she ain't getting paid, as ICE agents start arriving at airports due to the shutdown.
ICE agents recently were deployed to your airport, among others. How do you and your colleagues feel about having them there?
We're concerned. We have a lot of concerns. Officers are afraid. They don't know what's going to happen. They're not inside the security area. They're outside the security area, watching as people are coming in, watching as people are coming out.
Well, in case you're wondering, so what's going on with ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro? Well, he is set to return to Manhattan Federal Court this morning. ABC's Peter Haralambous has the story.
For more than a decade, Nicolas Maduro enjoyed an opulent lifestyle as Venezuela's president, living in a palace in Caracas and accruing a net worth reportedly in the millions. But as he awaits trial in a Brooklyn jail cell on narco-terrorism charges, the ousted head of state is now pushing to have his case dismissed by arguing he doesn't have enough money to pay for his own legal defense. A judge is set to consider that argument this morning when Maduro returns to court for a conference that could determine the trajectory of the criminal case against him.
Back here in Middle Tennessee, Fox 17 News reports that NES has evaluated 4 pilot neighborhoods for underground power lines, with the largest of the 4 projects estimated to cost over $4 million. That's according to their CEO, Teresa Broyles-Applin. The record-breaking ice storm, of course, exposed weaknesses in Nashville's power grid, and NES has been working to make changes after the storms left all kinds of folks without any power for weeks. The board says they're going to discuss budget estimates in May, and NES is planning a study to see if underground power lines could work across the entire system. However, there's been no information yet on how much they're going to stick customers for to cover the costs of all this. That is the latest news. We've got traffic and weather on the way. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Up in the Gallatin area, this, of course, Sumner County. This is in the area Highway 25 west of Liberty Lane. Granted, this is somewhat rural, not affecting traffic all that much, but I guess it's affecting folks that live up there. Somebody's hit a deer up there, and that area of the roadway is currently blocked. Poor deer. We also have a bit of congestion now. 24 westbound. We had an earlier accident near Bell Road. The accident's gone, but boy, the traffic is still there and getting worse as we go through the morning. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Oh, Lord, really? .635, Nashville's Morning News. So Matthew Hurt, just to let you know, Matthew, Sam says, hey, I've got a great recurring bumper for Matthew Hurt when he joins the program. And I said, okay, what do I need to prepare myself for? And he said, oh, don't worry, Dan. You're going to love it. And this is what it is. Nazareth and Love Hurts. Yeah.
Get it? Because...
No, I get it. Matthew Hurt is his last name. Hey, Sam, good job. Good job. Anyway, and by the way, Matthew spells his last name with 2 T's, actually, with 2 T's. I think that's right, Matthew?
It is 2 T's, Dan. MATTHEWHURTT on X.
There you go. Very good. All right. And you are our grassroots political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us. So CNN has this headline, still no funding deal as Congress to leave for 2-week recess tomorrow. Airports are still a mess. Democrats, of course, refusing to fund TSA until they're allowed to gut ICE. And I'm watching all of this play out. Clearly, Donald Trump has been trying to find a solution to all of this, but I don't know. You think as we head towards the midterm elections, I mean, the American people going to remember this is going on or this happened? I mean, I can't imagine this is not going to be going on in November, but I mean, there's a lot of people, millions of people who are feeling this heartache.
You know, I don't expect this to be a headline in October, but this funding, the funding problem is a longstanding problem in Congress. I think President Trump actually in this is playing a little bit of 4D chess. He's deployed, I think there were ICE agents at Dulles and Reagan either over the weekend or earlier this week. So the Democrats, if TSA agents are not going to show up for work because they are not getting paid, then President Trump could deploy ICE to those airports. And I've seen the lines. I was in a really long line a week or so ago at Reagan. The lines at Atlanta and LaGuardia, it is crazy. And this is one of the places where, and Dan, one of the things that you and I talk about all the time is where does public policy impact voters the most? And as people travel, they go to the airport. And that is one place where if you have to get to the airport 4 hours or more earlier to get to your flight, that's a problem. And missed flights, you know, waiting in line is bad, but missing a flight is even worse. And so this is a public policy where the rubber meets the road issue, where President Trump can say, look, you're not funding this part of the government. Now, look, I'm a small L libertarian, and you go back 30 years, 35, 40 years, and we didn't have TSA. And there are a number of airports in the country who use private security. And I would even make the argument to abolish TSA altogether. It was a post-9/11 government agency, and there are about a dozen airports in the country who don't use TSA, and they have not had these issues.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is you do now have some Republicans. This was a story earlier this week where the Republicans are saying, okay, let's fund everything but deportations. And there's quite a hue and cry from people on the right on that one.
Yeah, that seems like why would you take that element of the funding out of a package? Because you force the Democrats to vote to fund this. And put those votes on the board and then go make the case to voters in the midterm elections. Why would a Republican knowingly give up? Well, I know why Senate Republicans would do it, but why would Republicans give up the pinch point for Democrats to not put them on the record? This is one of the things that's so important to do in Nashville and in Washington is if it's a tough vote, put those elected officials on the record so that there is then a record you can go and talk about.
I saw a headline, and I always look at these headlines with a grain of salt, but the headline was 51% of the American people would prefer Democrats running Congress, House of Representatives, and, of course, the Senate as well. We're talking about, generic Democrats versus generic Republicans and so on and so forth. But, this we have a war. Obviously, you know this. We have a war that is going on. And there is a debate going on now as far as, okay, so how do we even define victory in a war? Because certainly, and I went into this earlier, we have a decisive military victory, but as far as a political victory, we're not quite there yet. So a couple of different aspects to this question. Number one is, okay, so how do we define victory in this war from a political standpoint? That's number one. And number two, okay, so how long do you predict this will be going on? And I'm not sitting here, with a stopwatch waiting for it to be over, but I do understand that, the longer this goes, the worse it is for the Trump administration.
Yeah, Dan, this is troublesome. Victory was not clearly outlined at the beginning of this. At the beginning, it seemed to be counter to a lot of what President Trump argued in the America First realm of the conversation. And now we have these sort of moving goalposts where earlier this week and late last week, President Trump said, this is over. We're coming to the end, mission accomplished, which harkens back to George W. Bush on the carrier, which then we knew for 20 more years the mission wasn't accomplished. And that sets President Trump up for, and this is something that I struggle with for my hardcore Donald Trump supporters. Why would he put himself in a position to make a statement like that to then potentially be proven wrong in such dramatic fashion? So the objectives weren't clearly outlined. I am very opposed to boots on the ground in this situation. I think a majority of Americans are. But to go back to the first part of your statement here, 51% of Americans want a generic Republican. Well, what that would mean is nonstop impeachments all the time. Yeah. Impeachment of Donald Trump, impeachment and attempted removal of members of the cabinet, and all of these things. Nobody would get anything done for 2 years except a far left agenda putting President Trump and his administration on trial.
Well, and you talk about, Donald Trump and impeachments. I mean, I think that they're going to try to put some folks in jail. And you've got Donald Trump, you've got J.D. Vance, you have Kristi Noem. I mean, all of these folks, I can see the Democrats knowing how they are and how rabid they are and how TDS they are, where they would go after every member of the Trump administration. Tom Homan, I can almost guarantee you they're going to go after him. And yet, when the Republicans end up back in office, a lot of people talked about how we should go after, say, for example, Alejandro Mayorkas for leaving the border wide open. The Democrats, they did what they did when they were in office during Joe Biden. So now we didn't go after Mayorkas with any kind of charges or anything like that. So do you think the Democrats, given the fact that we did not go in guns blazing as far as politically trying to bring up charges against some within the former Biden administration, but do you think they really would come after the Trump administration? I believe that they would.
I think that we're going to see an increased weaponization of government against political enemies. And isn't it weird, Dan, that just 11 years ago, President Barack Obama awarded Tom Homan, who was then just a career immigration official, the Presidential Rank Award for his work on ICE. So in 11 years, we've gone from a Democrat president who was deporting illegal aliens, awarding Tom Homan, to the threat of people like Tom Homan if Democrats take control of Congress and certainly the White House in 2028, putting those people on trial and putting them in jail. It is crazy how far we've come in 11 years, and I do think we're going to see an increased weaponization and politicization of government. We're seeing it in Virginia with the close of the legislative session just a few weeks ago, how far the far left is willing to go when they get just a little bit of power.
Scary times. It is coming up on 645. Matthew Hurt joining us on Nashville's Morning News, and going to check the roads real quick, then back to Matthew. 645 on WTN. As far as your weather goes, partly sunny today, breezy and warm, a high approaching the 2007 record of 86 degrees. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. WTN. Matthew Hurt is joining us. Matthew, I want to play a piece of audio for you. This was Donald Trump. I got video here, if you would, Sam. This is Donald Trump last night talking about the differences between Republicans and Democrats.
Americans saw the true and craven nature of congressional Democrats during my State of the Union, and we're not going to let that happen again. They really are. They're a party, and it's terrible to talk. I want it to be the old way where they got, Democrats, Republicans used to get together, have lunch, and then they'd fight a little bit, and, but it doesn't seem to be happening that way. And this is before me. Because if you go back to Obama, he was a great divider. He divided this nation. He was a lousy president. The worst president in history was Biden. But Obama was a terrible president. He was a divider. He did so many bad things. But they're the party of fraudsters, criminals, radicals, illegal aliens, high taxes, and putting America last. That's what they are. They put America last. Republicans are the party for every hardworking patriot. And we do something very much different than them. We put America first.
I mean, clearly he's right. I mean, the Republican Party hasn't changed. And the Democrat Party hasn't changed either. So it really is, and I know that we've discussed this before, Matthew Hurt, but it really is baffling to me that we have so many folks that have forgotten what happened over the 4 years of Joe Biden. And now here we are in a situation where, you know, there's a lot of people that are predicting that we may lose the midterm elections. But the president, you know, he really does define the differences in party really well there.
Right, and one of the points you made about Barack Obama, you know, it was 15 years ago that Barack Obama taunted Donald Trump from the stage at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which I think and many people think ultimately pushed Donald Trump to run in 2016. But yeah, the divisiveness of the Obama administration, I think the most divisive presidential administration in American history up to that point, then sort of launched this dichotomy. It doesn't make it easy, or it doesn't make it any harder, because President Trump could be a divisive figure, and this TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, that leftists have. I mean, I walked to the office this morning and I saw 18 No Kings protest posters for this weekend. So we're in a peculiar time right now, and Republicans have pretty much stayed the same. And even President Trump's agenda, some elements of it look like President Clinton in the mid-'90s, and the left has pushed the Democratic Party further to the left, way far.
And the silly part of that is, okay, No Kings protest. They're intimating that Donald Trump believes that he's a king. And if he was a king, he would be decreeing by Truth Social, and he would eliminate the filibuster like a half hour ago. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just, it is so ridiculous. Not ridiculous is an event that you, Matthew Hurt, are going to be leading here in Nashville. The Youth Leadership School. Now, as folks, if they've been listening to us talk here for the last couple of years, they know that your job, part of your job, is to teach the next generation of Republicans. And so talk a little bit about what this is and how people can find more information.
Well, Dan, as you know, and some of your listeners, I work at a place called Leadership Institute. Our mission is to increase the number and effectiveness of conservative activists. I took this training in April of 2007 at the behest of my then state representative. It is a 2-day intense training for college-age students. You get late high school, college age, early 20s. It's the Youth Leadership School. Carly Tomaine runs the operation. I come in and provide a lot of entertainment. I'm a high-energy guy. It is the weekend of April 11th and 12th at the Sheraton Grand Nashville. And if you want to find, if you're listening and you want to send your son or daughter, your grandson or granddaughter, we scholarship those attendees in. You can go to leadershipinstitute.org/YLS. And it's the training that launched my political and public policy career. And I really can't praise Carly's team enough for what they do for this training. It teaches you how to organize on campus. It teaches you how to volunteer for now Leadership Institute's a nonprofit, so conservative public policy activists out there. But there are a number of elected officials in Tennessee who took the Youth Leadership School, and there are a number of people who are in Washington. There are 40-plus members of Congress and U.S. senators who have taken some sort of Leadership Institute training, and this is the training that launched my career. It's intense. It's 29 hours over 2 days. So Saturday, April 11th, and Sunday, April 12th, at the Sheraton Grand Nashville. You just have to register, and I'm going to be there. I'm super excited. I get an opportunity to come home, do a training, and go see the family.
So you said, part of the entertainment.
Yes.
Okay. What are you going to do? You're going to juggle or?
Well, there's a lot of hour-long sessions over the span of 2 days, and I'm high energy. I'm about 3 cups of coffee into the morning, Dan, and you can already hear the energy and excitement. It is long, like I said, 29 hours, so it takes you got to bring somebody in who can make attendees laugh, but also connect the principles of what it means to make an impact and to save the country. And that's exactly what Carly and her team do 15 weekends out of the year all across the country.
You know, I got to tell you, and I love what you're doing, and I have for a long time. Which side do you think, a little bit of a curveball, but which side do you think is more motivated within their youth, the youth within their party, the Democrats or the Republicans? Which side has motivated their youth more?
What I can tell you, Dan, is that most young people are apathetic, and if you connect with them on campus or through church or through a Turning Point chapter, they will go out and get involved. And for 47 years, Leadership Institute's been doing this, and we have seen waves and waves of young people who come onto campus and they get more engaged and involved. Most young people are not liberal, they're apathetic, and we have to do the work to connect with them and get them fired up. And I think there's a good balance, but we have to do the work on our side to make sure those young people are both enthusiastic but also educated and informed.
We've talked about the Charlie Kirk impact, you know, his assassination and how that motivated a lot of young people to get involved, and a lot of people discovering Charlie Kirk for the first time. Are you still seeing that motivating factor in the assassination of Charlie Kirk and people discovering him for the first time and becoming motivated to get involved?
We are seeing that, and Leadership Institute works with Turning Point. I think Caroline Levitt is going to be at George Washington University later this month, so they're bringing high-profile speakers. But I know you and I have talked about this, but when Charlie Kirk was 19, he spent a day at Leadership Institute learning how to start a nationwide youth effort. And so we have trained, there are many thousands of people who go on to business and government and raise a family, and then there are people like Charlie who played such an important impact in the public policy process. And so we're so grateful for that partnership with our friends at Turning Point, and for all the young people who find a video, find one of those videos of Charlie debating on campus and go out and get involved. It's so the enthusiasm is high. It's very exciting. What a tragedy of his assassination, but that has probably released a new generation of young people who are going to find Charlie's message online and go out and do something about it.
All right, Matthew, good luck. And when you're in town, maybe you can get up early and stop by the studio.
I would love to, Dan. Would love to see you there in studio. And you could find me on X at Matthew Hurt, MattheWHurtt.
All right, it is 6:53, Nashville's Morning News. Thank you, Matthew, as always. We've got Jay doing the news at 7. Jay, what do you got?
Yes, sir, Dan. The president continuing to increase pressure on Iran. And there are some changes coming in Army recruiting. We'll fill you in on that. That's coming up at 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay. 6:54, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Glock store, you know, they've got their big open house coming up. And yeah, it's their annual open house. They do this every single year. And this year, it is going to be on Saturday, May 30th. I'm going to be there. I believe Murphy Show is going to be there. I know that Chris Hand is going to be there. We'll all be there. And we always have such a great time. I think this is my 5th or 6th time of coming to the Glock Store's open house. They do a lot of great things at these open houses. And again, this one is on Saturday, May 30th. But they've got great speakers. They've got demonstrations. They've got shooting competitions. They've got all kinds of vendor tables and factory representatives as well. They got all kinds of swag, too. So if you want to find out more information, find them online. It is glockstore.com. Last year, to talk a little bit about the giveaways, they gave away over $25,000 in incredible raffle prizes and a few Glocks as well, including a GS custom Glock worth over $2,000. So they're going to do it big again this year. Check them out, glockstore.com, and keep that date open. Saturday, May 30th. Come say hi to me, Matt, and Chris. Saturday, May 30th. The details upcoming, glockstore.com, shoot270.com.
It is 7 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories. A traffic report and a weather forecast are coming up. President Trump this morning putting new pressure on Iran as Iran continues to insist there are no negotiations taking place. ABC News' Karen Travers has the latest.
President Trump in a social media post writes that Iranian negotiators are, quote, begging the U.S. to make a deal, even as Iranian officials say publicly that negotiations between the two countries aren't happening. Pakistan says it's relaying messages between the two countries to try to reach an end to the war. President Trump says Iran, quote, better get serious soon before it's too late, a threat that comes after his press secretary Caroline Leavitt said this on Wednesday.
President Trump does not bluff, and he is prepared to unleash hell. Iran should not miscalculate again.
More Army recruits that are sitting down for their first buzz cuts are likely to see gray hair falling to the floor. ABC's Jim Ryan says the largest military branch is raising its maximum enlistment age.
Sign my name on the dotted line. Sign my name on the dotted line.
The U.S. Army has struggled for years to meet its recruitment goals, although it actually beat its target of 61,000 in 2025. In an attempt to bring the Army in line with most of the other military branches, the Pentagon is boosting the age at which someone can sign up from 35 to 42, virtually guaranteeing that more soldiers will be serving with their parents or their children.
Congress, they're scheduled to leave tomorrow for Easter recess, but there's still no deal to end the partial government shutdown. Democrats say GOP leaders are refusing to accept reforms to ICE. Republicans are accusing Democrats of just moving the goalposts with immigration reform. ABC News spoke to Congressman James Walkinshaw. He's a Democrat on the House Homeland Security Committee.
We have a scheduled congressional recess next week at the end of this week. That should absolutely be canceled if, God forbid, this issue isn't resolved.
Back here in Nashville, crews responded to a large fire at a warehouse in the Metro Center area overnight. The fire was reported initially at about 11 o'clock last night at the Det Beverages warehouse in the 300 block of Great Circle Road. The fire appeared to begin after a semi pulled into the dock and then burst into flames. The fire then spread to other trucks and into the facility itself. If you've seen the photos online, this fire is certainly significant. No injuries reported, no additional information currently available. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather. They are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. In Williamson County, we have a crash, I-840 westbound just before the 65 junction there. That's exit 31. Now, earlier, that area of the interstate there on 840 was closed. They've opened it back up, but as you can imagine, the traffic still pretty bad. It's backed up all the way to the Paytonsville Road exit there. That's exit 34. Also, a crash reported 4th Avenue South at Lafayette Street. We have got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.706 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends, and I hope you are doing well. And welcome on in. It is Thursday, March 26th, and we've got a lot to talk about. By the way, I do have some NAS news coming up here at about 7:35 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, so I want to do a little bit on the war with Iran. Yes, it is still going on. And yes, there's still a lot of fighting going on over it. And I want to play Kevin O'Leary seems to be somebody, you know, people know him, of course, from Shark Tank, and they call him Mr. Wonderful. And he has been somebody who has been very supportive of what Donald Trump is doing in the war in Iran. And I do understand, and you know, you've probably seen, heard, whatever, that there's a lot of people on our side, on the conservative side of the aisle, who are becoming a little impatient, if you will, with this war. Which, Sam, can you do me a favor? Figure out, when did we first go into Iran? It was February 28th, I think it was. I mean, we've only been in for, what, 4 or 5 weeks, something like that. So, you know, I do understand that there's a lot of things to grouse about. There's a lot of things to complain about. Kevin O'Leary is saying, listen, you've got to just give this some time.
That's really good for everybody because that's a lot more trade into Asia. That's the hub. UAE is the hub of trade for that whole region. That'll be a great outcome for investors like me. And I don't want to make light of the war. I keep saying that, but I'm thinking ahead 90 days here, and I'm liking what I see. Not the war. I keep saying that. I don't need the headaches on social media, but you know what I'm saying in terms of long-term vision. Yeah. Third, which I find really, really intriguing, is no matter what happens, no enriched uranium. That's got to be found and taken out of the country. That'll be part of the deal. Hormuz will be open in perpetuity. We've got 22 nations talking about supporting that financially. That's just like the Suez or Panama Canal. Great for the region. It's a game changer in the sense that all of a sudden you have stability in the fastest growing part of the earth. It's very, very bullish for world markets. And again, I preface it, I don't like war, but you got to let this play out because the big vision here is to finally stop this problem we've had for 60 years, and I really like that outcome.
So that is Kevin O'Leary. And listen, the man makes sense. The man makes sense. And I've always been a fan of Kevin O'Leary. But, you know, it is difficult when you see the polling and you see what's going on in Iran. We don't know if we're even speaking to the right groups in Iran. Donald Trump says, oh, we are speaking to the right groups. But, you know, just in the news this morning, President Trump posting on True Social, it's in all the headlines. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. But the president saying that, you know, Iran, they need to get serious. And one of the things that he also continues to say is, you know, they're going to be, I'm going to paraphrase here, but, you know, he's going to blow them to smithereens if they don't get serious very, very soon. I understand the president's impatience, but, you know, and as we've documented through guests and just, you know, analyzing the news, I think that Iran can go as long as they want to go with their drone warfare. I don't want to regurgitate what I said in the 6 o'clock hour, but there's a lot of issues that we're going to have to deal with as this continues to go on. And I'm with Kevin O'Leary. You know, don't think about the end of today. Don't think about the end of tomorrow. What you really need to do is you need to look at where we are 90 days out. Now, I like what Kevin O'Leary said, where he talks about, you know, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be open and Iran's nuclear possibilities, they'll just be completely obliterated and there won't be any opportunity for them to be able to manufacture nuclear weapons. That is also something I think that obviously everybody wants to see. And all of our partners in the Middle East are happy. Iran's able to sell oil on the open market. That brings oil prices down even more. There's a lot of really good that could come. Or we have troops on the ground and it is a complete train wreck. That is also a possibility. So, you know, this is one of those, and I hate when we all have to say this, but, you know, right now, I think that it could go either way. Bill O'Reilly was on with Chris Cuomo last night on News Nation. He says that he spoke to President Trump and the president still has some things up his sleeve.
Well, I talked to the president last night late, and here's what I know, Cuomo. So the United States would like to have a dialogue with Iran, but they don't know who to talk to. There's no clear leader anywhere. I mean, Omar, the tent maker, could show up to have the dialogue. They'd like to do it in Pakistan. They have Witkoff and Kushner ready to go. And they'd like to start the dialogue to get the things that the United States feel are necessary for world peace. So that's the American component. The chaos on the other side is undefined. There's no reporting on the ground. Nobody knows really where these people are. They're all hiding. A lot of them have been assassinated. So it's very hard to quantify what they're doing.
And the problem is, and Bill O'Reilly spoke about it, I've spoken about it as well, of course, is that are we talking to the right people? Now, earlier in the broadcast, but it does bear repeating, where they said, okay, listen, you know, Donald Trump said yesterday, I got a gift, a very expensive gift. I got a gift. And everybody was like, okay, well, what the heck was the gift? Well, it turns out that that gift, according to several sources, that gift was Iran allowing some ships to sail through the Strait of Hormuz, and those ships were loaded with oil. They were ships not affiliated with America and not affiliated with Israel. Nonetheless, the Iranians allowed them to go through. That supposedly for the president was a sign that, yes, we are dealing with the right people. You know, Bill O'Reilly, you just heard him say, Trump doesn't know who to talk to. You know, you could have Ahmed the terrorist come up and say, you know, hey, I've got a deal for you, right? Nobody knows who to speak with, and this has been something that I've been saying for a long time. There's so many different groups that are on the ground in Iran, and nobody really knows who is in charge of the military in Iran, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. And so until we can get them under control, and as I joked yesterday, boy, you heard O'Reilly talk about the assassinations. I wish they would all just get in one place and we could annihilate them and take them out. Here's more from Bill O'Reilly.
The Revolutionary Guard is pretty much in control of hurling missiles and drones in the Straits of Hormuz. They're going to run out of ordnance soon. And then you have the China factor, which is huge. Because President Trump doesn't want to eliminate the oil from Iran to China, particularly when he's going there in middle of May. So it's a very complicated thing. This simplistic garbage that you hear on television news in America is insulting. The administration is now waiting to see if it can get the deal that it wants. And that's where we are.
So there you go. There's a lot going on, and it's not just as I got people hitting me up on 615-737-9986. The super text line, One guy, I think it was 59-22. They're coming in fast and furious. Donald Trump literally started a war. I understand that. I do. And now the president has to finish it and finish it very quickly. It is 7:15. Time to check the roads on WTN. As far as your weather goes, partly sunny today, breezy and warm, and a high approaching the 2007 record of 86 degrees. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. All right, so in the news yesterday, and I heard Jay talking about how there's, I guess, Jay, if you're listening, NES now they are trying to decide, or they have decided, which regions or areas will have these underground.
Correct. Yeah, they have targeted 4 areas to begin this project of laying these underground power lines. The first of the 4 areas, costing over $4 million to do it, and they're going to conduct a study to see if they perhaps can expand it throughout their system.
Okay,
we'll see where all this ends up. They're supposed to meet in May to discuss these things further.
All right, very good. And, I'm a big proponent of that. I think that would probably solve a lot of the problems that we saw back in January. But yesterday we told you about how NES managers were now asking for and being provided security. We're finding out more information on that this morning. Jeremy Finley reported for Channel 5 that ratepayers have paid more than $147,000 for off-duty Metro Nashville police officers to provide security for Teresa Broyles-Applin.
NES says there are 11 credible threats targeting leadership. Officials also report harassment emails and vehicle break-ins. Security has been stepped up at headquarters and leadership homes. Metro Police are investigating, and NES plans to press charges. Officials say they're continuing to work with law enforcement while tightening security across the organization.
All right, so obviously threats and harassment, never appropriate. By the way, some reporting the 11, others are saying there were 13 threats or death threats and harassment and so forth. And again, never appropriate. I think what it does show is the level of frustration at the massive amount of mistakes and excuses made by NES. The city was so angry and people were without power for so long. So, this 24-hour security, apparently it ends this month. So now the question is, will they renew that security? But also you have the issue with the PR firm, and this is something that we talked about, a PR firm for NES telling WSMV4 that there have been 13 credible threats made so far that Metro Nashville police are investigating. They say we asked if the threats were specifically made towards NES leadership and are waiting to hear back. Metro Nashville police confirmed to WSMV4 that they are aware of 11 instances of threatening, harassing, or doxing behavior directed at NES and or its employees. No one has been charged at this point. Of course, our friend Metro Councilwoman Courtney Johnston says the lack of transparency on NES paying for the security is frustrating. She believes that NES leadership should pay for their own security. That's what I said. I mean, Teresa Broyles-Applin, she makes upwards of $650,000. I, too, believe that she should pay for her own security. It just, for Courtney Johnston, the quote is, it just seems more and more I'm seeing just a very flippant attitude on how we spend ratepayer and taxpayer dollars. Johnson says, telling Channel 4. Here's more from the report.
We have recently addressed some severe email harassment that's been occurring. We've had break-ins of employee vehicles on our main campus during the winter storm. And we're currently navigating 11 credible death threats through the Metro Nashville Police Department that were made against management. We are grateful to MNPD for assistance in helping us secure our campus, mitigate threats, and doubling our overall security footprint during a portion of our storm recovery.
Yep, that was, of course, the CEO for NES, Teresa Broyles-Applin. I did mention, by the way, the PR firm talking about the threats. Can anybody figure out why exactly it is that a utility needs a PR firm? I mean, I want you to think about this, and I may be blowing smoke here, and that's all fine. I may be up over my skis. But if they've got a monopoly, what's the point of a PR firm? A PR firm is to help people decide on utilizing your product, right? Isn't that basically what a PR firm is? It works on your reputation and your branding and all of that. People don't have a choice but to use NES for their power. So why the hell are they spending millions of dollars on a PR firm? And by the way, they've had this PR firm since I think it's 2023. So they had the PR firm and they still shanked in January of 2026. So the PR firm is obviously not helping their performance any. They signed a contract with this PR firm, $10 million over 3 years to help fix this mess, and I don't see it happening. Do you know what the best PR is for any company? Do your job. That's the best PR you can get if you're a company. They've also hired lobbying firms and more PR. It is just crazy. Millions of dollars.
But hey, they have a billboard right there by in the junction of 65 and 40. They got a billboard that thanks all the line workers. Yeah.
Well, okay, so number one, that's fine and all, and everybody is appreciative of the line workers.
Oh yeah.
I bet you those line workers, when they saw that, they're like, "Well, you should have sent us out on the job the morning of the ice storm."
Yeah.
Because we know that there wasn't nearly enough line workers at the ready here in Nashville. They know that they screwed up royally.
They didn't get enough thanks, and the citizens have not gotten enough of an apology.
You know what would be the best PR available? And that's a great point, Sam, about the apology. Some accountability, right? Someone getting fired, someone stepping down. I remember when Murphy Show had the mayor of Nashville on, Freddie O'Connell, and the mayor said, well, you know, we've learned, and she's learned a lot from the ice storms of 2026. And, you know, my head exploded. At $650,000 a year, you should not be learning on the job.
And 4 deaths.
And 4 deaths. You should not be learning on the job. So what is the best PR for a energy company, a power company? Doing your job, keeping the power on during storms, being ready with enough linemen, making sure that your apps and your websites work, and making sure the appropriate information is being dispersed. And again, if you are a power company and you have a monopoly, you don't need a PR firm. You just don't, because people have no choice but to use your company. We don't need to spend, $10 to $13 million on a PR company for NES. By the way, again, the CEO here, Teresa Boyles-Applin, she does get that annual salary of $650,000 a year. And so that's why people are saying that she should be paying for her own security. And by the way, we're also finding out, they had a meeting just the other day about just how bad, through NES, just how bad their systems were as far as the productivity and the performance, and how overwhelmed they were back in January. Again, this is Teresa Boyles-Applin.
I think we had 11 million hits on the outage map. People either checking it or trying to report their outages via the outage map. We had 83,000 calls to the call center. We had even more IVR calls of people calling to report their outages. We had 2.3 million text messages. So incredible volume that was a bit overwhelming.
So one of the things that I'd like to see addressed, if they actually really wanted to regain the trust of the people here in Tennessee, and certainly the people in Nashville who are forced to take their power, is that because we know we had far fewer linemen at the ready as necessary, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but, remember the other day we had storms. I think Sam and Joan and I talked about it, where the other day we had storms coming through, and they sent out actually a release indicating that they had a lot of people standing by, right? I mean, that seemed to be an indicator that, yes, they know how badly they screwed up, and moving forward, they are going to have better plans. That's all, again, that's all great. but still waiting for some accountability. Teresa Boyles-Applin also went through some of what went wrong on that fateful week here in Middle Tennessee.
The outage map struggled under storm scale load. The communications playbook wasn't followed. The outage map struggled under storm scale load and mostly with outage reporting through the outage map. And our texting and IVR systems were overwhelmed.
So I don't know if anybody has a lot of confidence in NES. You know, let's go to the phones. Do you have confidence in NES? I'd have full phone lines of no, 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 no. But if you want to check in on the Super Text line, it is very active this morning. Thank you. 615-737-9986. Jay Harper has the news coming up at 7:30. Jay.
Yes, sir, Dan. DHS negotiations continue, but are they really getting anywhere? We'll have the latest. Also, the president says the U.S. and Iran are engaged in talks, but Iran says, no, we're not. What are you talking about? We'll have those stories coming up at the bottom of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Jay. 726. Dan Mandis here for Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. This is my HVAC company, has been for many, many years. Now, when something goes wrong in your home, you want the team that shows up fast, fixes it right, and yes, treats you like family. That is Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. They are your trusted pros for total home comfort, and right now, it is the perfect time to upgrade. When you purchase a 16-SEER high-efficiency HVAC system or a whole home repipe, Busy Bee is going to give you a Yeti Tundra 45 cooler absolutely free. And this month only, Busy Bee has TVA rebates available for tune-ups and unit replacements as well. Even better, do what I did years ago and join the Beehive Club membership. You're going to keep your home humming year-round. Members get priority scheduling, discounted repairs, free annual HVAC and plumbing checks, extended warranties as well. And yes, the peace of mind knowing that your equipment is always running at its best. It is the easiest way to save money, avoid breakdowns, and protect your home. Call them. Tell them Dan told you to reach out at 615-775-7833, 615-775-7833, busybeehvac.com.
It is 31 minutes past 7 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, traffic and weather. They're coming up. Congress is scheduled to leave town tomorrow. Yes, they've got an Easter recess coming, but there's still no deal to end the partial government shutdown. Democrats say GOP leaders are refusing to accept reforms to ICE. Republicans, they're accusing Democrats of just keep moving the goalposts with this immigration reform. ABC's Whit Johnson, he's standing in the crowd at JFK Airport.
Most of those long lines we're seeing are happening during peak travel time. Some major airlines, including Delta and United, are offering waivers so that travelers can change their flights without any additional fees. But those offers are mostly limited to specific airports, those hardest hit airports across the country.
President Trump says the U.S. and Iran are engaged in talks, but Tehran says, no, we're not. ABC's Sophie Flay reports.
A new poll shows 34% of voters approve of how President Trump is handling Iran. 59% disapprove. Trump last night insisted Iran is negotiating, even after it publicly rejected his 15-point peace proposal.
They want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people.
Central Command says U.S. forces have now hit 10,000 targets in Iran, destroying nearly all of its largest Navy ships.
Back here in the U.S., more extreme heat and a new threat of tornadoes today in parts of the country. Here's ABC News meteorologist Lee Goldberg.
Going on 9 straight days of 100-degree heat in Phoenix, continues to the end of the week. More record warmth in Las Vegas. The heat's getting into the plains, down into Texas. Some record warmth in the Carolinas into Atlanta on Friday, and then they get their big drop as we go into the weekend. We're concerned about severe weather from Peoria to Chicago to Columbus as we go through the evening hours. Big-time rain, damaging winds, some large hail, even a couple of tornadoes. That heat is going to try to get to the east, although the northeast struggles into early April.
That is the latest news, traffic, and our weather. They're coming up next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Thank you, Joe. Jay. Thank you, Jay.
No problem, Dan.
You know, I'm laughing. I turned on the mic. I was laughing because of something that Joe said on Super Text line. So Trump killed all the leaders in Iran and continues to kill any new leaders and is surprised there is no one to negotiate with. Is this a Monty Python skit? A lot of great comments actually in the super text. So I'm going to read some of those coming back. Also, I'm going to check in with the comments on the YouTube chat as well. And Andy Ogles, Congressman Andy Ogles, is making the news yet again. And sources are now saying, just to keep you folks up to speed, Iran is preparing for a possible U.S. attack on Karg Island. And remember, as we've said, Karg Island is that island where Iran does a lot of their oil and their gasoline processing and all of that, their oil processing. And that's how they basically export all of that oil is on Karg Island. So supposedly what they're doing is they're setting up a bunch of traps for us if we end up with ground troops on Karg Island. So there's a lot going on with the war in Iran. Going to continue to cover all of it for you here on Nashville's Morning News. And I'm Dan Mandis. You know, the Wellness Institute of Nashville has my seal of approval because this is a company, and Dr. Kevin Mitchell is a doctor that changed my life for the better. When I came here 12 years ago, I was really suffering from back and neck pain, sciatica, slipped or bulging spinal discs, herniated discs, spinal stenosis, numbness or weakness in the arms and legs, fingers or toes. You know, he can help you with all of those. Now, yeah, I was suffering from back and neck pain. If you suffer from any of those that I just mentioned, well, they can help you with non-surgical spinal decompression. And right now, it is cheaper than ever. Listen to this, 47% off non-surgical spinal decompression. That is happening right now. So if you're hurting, Dr. Mitchell can help you feel better fast with 47% off. And, you know, they've got all kinds of great technology at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. You can have robotic lasers, anti-gravity machines, cryo machines, stem cell stimulation machines, all at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Call this number like I did many years ago. It's 615-246-5009, 615-246-5009, 615-246-5009. Don't forget that 47% off. Painisbad.com is the website, painisbad.com. And again, this is a doctor who can help you feel better fast. The Wellness Institute of Nashville, Painisbad.com. The guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate. It is the easiest way to sell your home. You're going to save time and make the most money. Dan Mandis here. Say goodbye to the stress that comes with showings and open houses and costly home repairs. My friends at Mark Spain Real Estate, they are going to sell your home fast and for maximum profit. Now, one of their clients, Steve, said that his experience with Mark Spain Real Estate was beyond 5 stars. Not only did he get an amazing offer on his home, but they closed quickly as well. Steve wraps it up by saying, I am so appreciative of Mark Spain Real Estate. Now, Steve is not alone. Mark Spain Real Estate has over 13,000 5-star reviews. They sell more than 38 homes every single day, making them the most experienced real estate team in the country. So trust Mark Spain Real Estate to provide the strongest cash offer in the industry and sell your home hassle-free. Find out what the guaranteed offer would be on your home today. There's no obligation. Call them. Tell them Dan told you to reach out. 855-299-SOLD, 855-299-SOLD. MarkSpain.com is the website to get that guaranteed offer on your home today. This is MarkSpain.com and start packing.
A wreck now reported Highway 100 at McCrory Lane. It's in front of the Loveless Cafe there. Also, we've got an injury crash. This is Haywood Lane at Apache Trail. Another wreck, Charlotte Avenue near 45th Avenue North. And up in Sumner County, 31E is you're headed to Gallatin. There's a mystery jam there. We've had some people actually text in saying, what's going on? We've been sitting in traffic up here. I can see on the traffic maps that there is congestion there, but nothing indicating what the problem is. It does seem to stop. Whatever the issue is, it seems to stop at Airport Road there in the as you approach Gallatin. So anyway, just know that there is some congestion there. Why? Not really sure. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and good morning to you. It is Thursday, March 26th. By the way, Nashville's Morning News brought to you by Tennessee National Golf and Marina Community. And there is a lot going on. I mean, the situation in Iran, it continues to unfold, and we're keeping you updated with all the latest. I think Jay was reporting this, and I was reporting this, that there's an impatience with President Trump at this point, and basically he's saying that Iran needs to really start getting serious about the negotiations. And, you know, part of that storyline is, does Donald Trump even know who he is supposed to be negotiating with? And so we'll keep our eye on all things Iran. There's some other things going on, including this. A new Tennessee state law would require local authorities to work with ICE. Now, I think that is obviously, as somebody who is pro-legal immigration, anti-illegal immigration, I think this is a great thing. This is certainly not new news to you. If you listen to Nashville's Morning News, I've spoken to both Cameron Sexton and Jack Johnson about this kind of legislation. You know, we need to make the state of Tennessee as unhospitable to illegal aliens as possible. So, you know, there's a number of bills that are out there. This one would require local law enforcement agencies to work with ICE. If they don't, they could actually lose funding. I love this from, I think this is SMV. A new Tennessee bill would require local law enforcement agencies to work with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement through a 287G agreement. I know that you folks have heard of the 287Gs. The 287G agreement gives law enforcement limited authority to help ICE crack down on illegal immigration, and in exchange, the agencies are promised resources such as training. The number of Tennessee local law enforcement agencies participating in the 287G program has gone up more than fivefold since Fox 17 News first reported on the issue back in June of 2025. I remember when all this came to light. According to the ICE database, the number of participating agencies is now up to 60. You've got 48 sheriff's offices, each counted only once, and even if they have multiple models, 8 constable districts, each treated as a separate participating agency, and 4 police departments. I think that is great as well. They do have a little video. I'm just going to play it just because I find it I find it kind of silly what the Democrat has to say. This is State Representative Johnny Garrett, and they couple his audio with a Democrat. Am I up over here? This is Johnny Garrett and a Democrat to be named in a second.
Democrats would rather put illegal aliens above the safety of Americans.
Law enforcement working with ICE doesn't make anybody safe.
Law enforcement working with ICE doesn't make anyone safe. Really? Why didn't you tell that to Sheridan Gorman, who was shot and killed by an illegal alien in Chicago, Illinois? I mean, Garrett says the focus is on trying to prevent crime. And he is absolutely right. You know, if you take the politics out of this whole thing, just strip out the politics, just strip away all the hysteria from the left. And what do you have? You have agencies working together to make something better. Now, Gabby Salinas, the Democrat that you heard, that, you know, basically, and I'll play it again in a second, where she says that, you know, essentially nothing good comes out of agencies working with ICE. That just doesn't even make any logical sense. And we'll talk about that and what Andy Ogles wants to do. It is all straight ahead. Nashville's Morning News, 7:45. Time to check the roads on WTN. Partly sunny, breezy, warm today, a high approaching the 2007 record of 86 degrees. It's going to be a great day. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Talking about this piece of legislation here in the state of Tennessee where it would mandate that local law enforcement agencies have got to work with ICE. And if not, then they're going to lose some funding. So this was some audio provided by Fox 17, and this is Johnny Garrett, a Republican, and also a woman by the name of Gabby Salinas, a Democrat, and here they are back to back.
Democrats would rather put illegal aliens above the safety of Americans.
Law enforcement working with ICE doesn't make anybody safe.
I mean, that just doesn't make any sense, Gabby Salinas. All across Middle Tennessee, you have thousands of people just shaking their head.
Just for clarification's sake, out of the, DUIs being a hot topic in Tennessee over the last couple of years, roughly 13 to 14% of the DUIs committed in the state were all illegal migrants.
You don't say. I mean, how many times have we, talked about the drunk illegal aliens getting behind the wheel of a car? And, I'm always fascinated by the people who, and I'm going to go ahead and, Gabby Salinas, this Democrat, I'm going to discount what she says altogether because she has no credibility, because her statement is so stupid. But where does Andy Ogles fit into all of this? Audio up. This is Andy Ogles, and this will come as no surprise to you. The congressman from the 5th Congressional District, and he's spoken about this on my show, but it is back in the news because of what the good results that we saw in the city of Memphis, Tennessee. And now the congressman has been asking for ICE and the National Guard and all of these folks to come to Nashville. This is Congressman Andy Ogles.
Sir, thank you for being here with us. First of all, talk about the impact that you saw in Memphis and why you think this will be a good fit here in Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, the results, the metrics, the data matters. So you have a city, it's the home, the birthplace of Elvis, or at least his legacy. There were songs about Memphis, walking in Memphis, but it had become a crime-ridden city, the most violent city in the United States of America. And because of this surge, because of the commitment by President Trump, and really the collaboration between the local, state, and federal level, the streets of Memphis are safe again. And, I was able to talk to some of the residents, business owners. A woman was talking about her child was able to play in the yard, to ride his bike.
I mean, we've all heard the success stories of what is going on in Memphis. And you know what the thing that I love about what the Trump administration did is they said, okay, we need a city beyond Washington, D.C., because Washington, D.C. is controlled by the federal government. But they said, we need a city that we can make an example of. And that city, of course, was the city of Memphis. And we, of course, see what's going on in Chicago.
There had been a drive-by shooting, and a bullet literally went through the wall of their home, but now the city's safe. And so this is not political. This is about the safety of one of America's jewels. Middle Tennessee, Nashville is the capital. Many people would say that Memphis is the heart because of the music, the soul, and the food there. But that being said,
he said something there that I completely missed the first time I heard this. Did he just say that Memphis is the heart of Tennessee? I'm going to rewind that. I just want to rewind that. I would not to argue with the congressman, but I don't know if that's true. Is Memphis the heart of Tennessee, or is Nashville?
It's a pretty important city as far as like the.
Memphis is an important city. I get that.
But if you're just looking in the recency bias of the last 20 years, it really hasn't been because of the crime and everything that's been going on. But historically, long term, yeah, there's an element that allows Tennessee to have such a unique culture from one side to the other. If you go from Memphis all the way to Knoxville, you get a whole range of people, a whole different literal amount of flavors throughout the state.
That is very true. That is, and I've never even been to Memphis other than, driving through it on I-40 because I refuse to go.
He's not kidding about the food. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I know.
There had been a drive-by shooting, and a bullet literally went through the wall of their home, but now the city's safe. And so this is not political. This is about the safety of one of America's jewels. Middle Tennessee, Nashville is the capital. Many people would say that Memphis is the heart because of the music, the soul, and the food there. But that being said, it works, and it is working, and the people there are safer. And we should bring that, or consider at least bringing that to Nashville. When you look at the 2024 crime data, Nashville is 13th for violent crime. Chicago is 14th. So we have more work to do here at home in Nashville.
So there you go. And yeah, he did ultimately say that, I think he couched by saying some people would say that Memphis is the heart of Tennessee. I would be interested. Hey, Jay. I just saw Jay roll his eyes. What does he want now?
Yes, Dan.
So you travel to Memphis because you do that sports network.
Correct. Yeah, I cover ball games out there. Yeah.
So and you've survived to tell about it. Andy Ogles had mentioned that. Sorry, Andy Ogles had mentioned sort of that Memphis is the heart of Tennessee, as opposed to Nashville, and I think that's actually a pretty interesting debate. Sam says maybe there's some recency bias because Nashville has had some great success over the last 20 years. But, long term, going way back, Memphis would be the heart. Do you have an opinion? Which is the heart of Tennessee?
Oh,
would you say
goodness.
it's Memphis or Nashville?
Well, I guess it would really come down to what you may identify with from a cultural perspective.
Right.
That may certainly play a part. But as Sam was saying, the historical impact of the city of Memphis with the Mississippi River running through there.
Yeah.
It certainly can claim, I think, a part of the heart of Tennessee, by all means.
Maybe like an aorta.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps.
See what I did
or
there
maybe
with
just like the left ventricle, perhaps.
We're so dumb. Moving right along. Thank you. Thank you. Daily Dan poll. So Sam is putting it up right now. Which city is the heart of Tennessee? Is it Memphis or is it Nashville?
I would frame it like this, just personally. I'd say Nashville's the brain, Memphis is the heart, and then Knoxville's like it's the mullet. It's the
what?
It's the mullet. Knoxville's the mullet.
The mullet?
Yeah. Business in the front, party in the back. And if you've ever been out to East Tennessee, you know that. You go downtown Knoxville, it's a cool place. You get out into the outskirts now.
Yeah. Okay.
They get a little rowdy out there.
Okay. Very good. I've been to Knoxville many times. I've never been to the outskirts, so I'm going to take your word for it.
You ain't lived.
And by the way, if I could still have a mullet, I'd probably have one.
Yeah,
But
Morristown up that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah. My party in the back, I could still do the party in the back, but the business in the front, man, that went about 15 years ago. Moving right along. He did, by the way, Andy Ogles, congressman, did talk about Nashville ranking higher than Chicago. They play around with these statistics, right? But he's right. I mean, depending on how you look at the stats. So why Nashville can rank higher than Chicago, I, of course, ChatGPT'd it. Some lists use rates per 100,000 residents, not total incidents, and that's where we are higher than Chicago. A violent crime index, Nashville is at 54.6%. Chicago, 49.9%. As far as a property crime index, Nashville beats Chicago. Nashville is at 53.3%. Chicago, it is 46.3%. So even though Chicago has more people and more total incidents, Nashville's rate is higher in these categories, which pushes up on certain rankings. Do you know what, though? Here's a question. Would you rather walk around at 2 o'clock in the morning in Nashville or Chicago?
Nashville.
Nashville.
Yeah.
Jay?
It depends on what part of each city you're referring to.
That's a good point.
I'm a big baseball fan.
Yeah.
I don't mind walking around where Wrigley Field is, but where Comiskey is, or whatever they're calling it now, on the south side, ain't walking down, not walking there.
That is very true. The south side of Chicago versus the north side of Chicago.
There are intersections that you don't stop at the stop signs for in the south side.
Oh, no. No.
And the cops don't blame you.
No. I mean, can you imagine Jay playing for the White Sox? Out there at Kaminsky Park, as Barack Obama once said.
Yeah.
They do say that. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
Well, I tell you what, I'll give myself up here. Coming in the morning here, the red lights at Demumbrian and the interstate there at 14th and stuff at 3:30 in the morning.
The Demumbrian overpass of I-40.
I blow through those lights in the morning.
I do too.
I ain't sitting there.
Both of them.
There ain't a soul anywhere besides some homeless guy with a shopping cart.
Yeah.
No, I'm not sitting there.
It's an ongoing joke amongst all of the morning shows on the second floor here at Cumulus, Nashville, where nobody. I think we did a poll one time of all the morning shows. Does anybody stop at those two lights? Because there's two
lights. Yep.
You get off 40 at Demumbrian. You make that. You want to make that left, and nobody. And it's a long light, and nobody waits at that light. And then you got to make another left into the little street that we're on. Nobody stops at that light either.
No.
I do stop. I treat it as like a stop sign.
Agreed.
There you go.
Agreed. I just don't blow through it, but I stop and see you later.
Nashville Metro's overall crime index is higher. You know what our Metro crime index is in Nashville? 110. You know what Chicago's is? 90. So this means, as they say, that Nashville's metro area has a higher relative risk of crime compared to the U.S. baseline. So, I mean, that is the point of what Andy Ogles is saying, which is, okay, well, then why don't we bring all of this additional law enforcement into Nashville since, we had such great response there in Memphis? And by the way, I'd be all for it. I mean, if that's what we wanted to do, I'd be all for it, because look at what has happened in Memphis, where everybody works together. It is 7:56. Jay's got the news coming up at 8. Jay.
Yes, sir, Dan. Congress is going on recess tomorrow. Yeah, I wonder if they have to stand in those TSA lines like the rest of us. Anyway, we'll
Not
have
if
that
they're flying Delta, Jay. You see that story from yesterday?
Yeah.
Delta's like, you know what? Screw you people in Congress. You're waiting in line with the rest of the people.
Yeah, and, I'm sure many of you have heard about that social media lawsuit decision in California. So what does that mean for the lawsuit floodgates perhaps opening up? We'll have all those stories coming up at 8 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We are 2 minutes past 8 a.m. I'm Jay Harper with your top stories, traffic and weather coming up. Congress is scheduled to get out of town tomorrow for Easter recess. There's still no deal, though, to end the partial government shutdown. Democrats say that the Republicans are refusing to accept reforms to ICE. And Republicans say Democrats keep changing what they want. ABC's Whit Johnson, he's and a bunch of folks at JFK Airport.
Those security lines getting longer and thousands of TSA officers calling out day after day. The administration is sending hundreds more ICE agents to airports across the country to help fill the void. And now President Trump is warning he may have to call up the National Guard.
Legal experts say they expect all kinds of lawsuits over social media addiction after yesterday's jury decision in California that found Meta and YouTube liable for a young woman's mental distress. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani weighs in.
What stood out to me is the fact that the plaintiffs in this case were able to get around the immunities under federal law. And I'm talking about Section 230 of the Communications and Decency Act that says that big tech, they're not liable for the content on their platforms. But this is different. The lawyers were able to successfully argue that the apps themselves are dangerous.
Back here in Nashville, Fox 17 News reports that NES has evaluated 4 pilot neighborhoods for underground power lines, with the largest of those estimated to cost over $4 million. The record-breaking ice storm exposed weaknesses in Nashville's power grid, and NES has been working to make changes after the storm left all kinds of people with no power for weeks. The board says they will discuss budget estimates in May, and NES is also planning a study to see if those underground power lines could work across the entire system. There's been no information, though, on how much you and I will pay for these upgrades. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News. Things starting to get hairy on Nashville interstates. We've got a crash 65 southbound. The on-ramp from Rosa Parks is partially blocked due to that wreck in Antioch. 24 westbound just past Haywood Lane. A wreck reported there. Also another not far from there. 24 westbound at Sam Ridley Parkway. And also Ellington Parkway northbound. The on-ramp from Spring Street got a wreck there, and it's blocking traffic. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
8:07, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you. And headline from CNN. It's like every time I look up at the TV, whether it's Fox or CNN, there's something new. Israel is saying Iran's top Navy commander has been killed. And I will say I'm surprised that he was still alive. So we have, and a lot of people are saying, including President Trump, that what is going on right now in Iran, clearly we have won the war, but have we won the politics? And so this is going to be an ongoing conversation. I've been talking about this off and on all morning long, as we all have. Some other things going on. The president was giving a speech last night, and it was a good speech. It actually sounded, to be perfectly honest, I've got audio here. It sounded like a campaign speech. This is part of what Donald Trump said last night.
But in our quest to restore public safety, we also need accountability for corrupt Democrat officials who conspire to obstruct federal law. Less than 1 week ago, a precious 18-year-old college student named Sheridan Gorman was shot and killed while walking in a park innocently. The illegal alien monster charged was, is total animal. Remember when Nancy Pelosi got angry because I used the word animal in describing a savage killer? We were okay with it. Didn't bother me at all. The illegal alien monster charged with Sheridan's brutal murder had come illegally from Venezuela, had been released into our country by sleepy Joe Biden. Yep. He had no idea what the hell he was doing.
And, you know, it's almost every single day that we see another one of these instances, and obviously it's infuriating. Listen to this. A college newspaper is now groveling. This is from the Daily Caller. A college newspaper is now groveling after calling the murderer an illegal immigrant. This is, again, the story from the Daily Caller. A Loyola University Chicago student newspaper apologized for referring to the illegal immigrant who murdered its student, Sheridan Gorman, as an illegal immigrant. The things that the left sort of gets themselves wrapped around is always fascinating to me. And as I've said many times, you know, what you're outraged over helps define you. And so if, you're this Loyola University Chicago student newspaper and you had a bunch of people that were outraged over the fact that you appropriately and accurately said that this guy, Jose Medina, was an illegal immigrant, that's an accurate statement. You're literally apologizing for being accurate. What is wrong with you people, and what is wrong with journalism? Because these are people that are learning how to be journalists. The Loyola Phoenix posted an editor's note apologizing for the headline of its story, reporting the charges filed against Jose Medina. The headline originally referred to Medina Squared as an illegal immigrant, which the note said did not reflect the most important elements in the story. The editor's note said the term illegal immigrant does not align with the Associated Press AP style book, as we say, or the values of this newspaper. What does that even mean? The values of the newspaper. What are the values of the newspaper? I mean, clearly, it does not include being accurate because Jose Medina Squared is indeed an illegal immigrant. And by the way, it is a huge part of this story, in my opinion. They also say this. Oh, my Lord. No human's existence is illegal, and we quickly caught our wording to reflect just that.
So I'm also a media student. They're wrong.
They are wrong. I mean, if this person is existing in America, they came across our southern border illegally, that in fact makes them an illegal immigrant or an illegal human existing in our country. That existence is illegal.
I would love to see that logic play out in a place like China or Singapore.
Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah. Prison for life in some cases, people.
So this is by Jack Cowhick. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Jack, if you're over there at the Daily Wire and you're wondering, this guy butchering your last name, I apologize. Let's see here. The article goes on to say the man is, in fact, an illegal immigrant from Venezuela who the Department of Homeland Security revealed was released by the Biden administration after being arrested by U.S. Border Patrol. DHS alleged in a Monday press release that Medina approached Gorman's group of friends wearing a mask and holding a gun, shooting and killing the 18-year-old student. So then the paper updates the story to call Medina a Rogers Park resident and deleted the original Instagram post calling him an illegal immigrant.
Somebody in that department yelled at someone else.
That is so amazing to me.
That sounds like a professor intervened because they do have control over that. If that's something that students are doing for class, that's what separates, where the school can have input on speech or not, is whether it's something, it's an in-class assignment or not. My issue also comes into play. It's one of the toughest gun law cities in America, and he is illegal in possession of a firearm.
Yeah. I mean, but don't allow facts to get in the way of a good liberal meltdown, which is exactly what was happening in the Loyola University newspaper, the Phoenix. It's just, but here's the deal. Whether it's a student newspaper out of a college or the mainstream media, they all do the same darn thing. You know what I mean? So I guess they're learning it honestly. This is what some of these places do in in the mainstream media, in professional journalism. And I should air quote, by the way, that term professional journalism, because I don't really know if that exists today, as a matter of fact. It is 8:15, time to check the roads on WTN. As far as your weather goes, looks like it is going to be a nice day today, partly sunny, breezy, and warm, and a high approaching the 2007 record of 86 degrees. Had a lot of reaction, positive for the most part, on something I spoke about in the 5 o'clock hour, so I'm going to repeat it here. And that is this audio from Brandon Johnson, where, I caught him just absolutely lying. We have some people that listen in the Chicago area, and they listen to WTN because they love this radio station, and they don't really have one like it in Chicago. So this is Let's Go Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, and he's talking about, this is that audio, where he was asked if he would apologize to the family of Sheridan Gorman. This is that exchange. This is video, and this is Brandon Johnson.
We're going to continue to pray for those victims.
Will you take this opportunity to apologize to Sheridan's parents for the policies that you promoted that would directly caused her death? That suspect would not be in the city, would not be in the country, but for your policies. Will you take this opportunity to apologize?
Well, again, I believe that we're all grieving the loss of Sheridan and other folks who have lost their lives.
So as I said yesterday, just very briefly, he is conflating Sheridan's death with the deaths of other people who were killed, I don't know, by whatever, gang violence. But I think that there is a difference. It probably doesn't matter to the family of Sheridan, but I believe that there is a difference between, gang violence of people that are in this country legally as citizens and violence at the hands of illegal aliens where we had not one but two opportunities to get him out of this country, and we chose not to do it. Brandon Johnson wouldn't admit that, but I will state it as a plain old fact.
Because of senseless violence, and let's just be very clear, between the Safety Act and the Welcoming City Ordinance, the Welcoming City Ordinance was passed 40 years ago by the first black mayor in the history of Chicago, and the Safety Act was passed under the governor, at that time who was a Republican, Governor Rauner. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you for your questions. In other words, I don't want to answer any more questions. But he did say that the Welcoming City Ordinance passed by the first black mayor of Chicago, it doesn't matter what the black mayor's skin color was. And it's almost like he says it like he's using it as a shield. Like, you will not question the welcoming city ordinance because it was passed by the first black mayor of Chicago. Doesn't matter to me. I'm sure there's a lot of Chicagoans, is that what they call them? A lot of Chicagoans that would also question this decision by the first black mayor of Chicago. So that's number one. But what this legislation does, the welcoming city ordinance, it's all the sanctuary city policies in Chicago. It bars Chicago police departments from cooperating with federal immigration enforcement and restricts ICE access to detainees and city facilities. So when Medina, the Venezuelan who killed this poor woman, was arrested in June of 2023, it's because of the just mentioned policies. The guy just walks up, no interaction with ICE whatsoever. Cops couldn't ask him about his immigration status. Illinois itself, as you know, is a sanctuary state. So that's number one. You also heard him mention the Safety Act in Illinois, which was passed by a Republican, he says. Well, it wasn't. There were some things that the Republican governor did with bail and sentencing reforms and commissions back years ago. But it was J.D. Pritzker who came in and expanded it massively and controversially. So the original piece of legislation was, a small piece of legislation regarding bail and sentencing reforms and commissions. But Pritzker came in and he added all of this other stuff to it that really just blew up the sanctuary city policies of Illinois, and of Chicago. So it wasn't the Republican governor. No, it was J.D. Pritzker who really blew this out of the water. So big shocker. You've got, Let's Go Brandon Johnson actually lying about what is going on. We've got a lot more straight ahead on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, including I do have some audio from Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson as they unveiled their new snowplow in Chicago. And you perhaps know by now that snowplow was called Abolish ICE. Unbelievable. That is all straight ahead. At 8:21 on Super Talk 99.7, and Jay Harper is in for Joan Jones. She's back on Monday. Jay, what's coming up in the news at 8:30?
Yeah, Dan, lawmakers still in a stalemate over how to fund the Department of Homeland Security. And is anyone surprised? And what does Pakistan have to do with the U.S.-Iran war? We'll answer that for you as well. That's coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Mandis here. It is indeed springtime, which means that summer is just a few months away. The work to get that beach bond back, it does begin right now. My friends at Contours, they can help you get it back with FDA-cleared red light technology. Now, Murphy Show, Matt Murphy, has been going through all of this. I have as well with our partners at Contours. And I really like going through the red light technology treatments at Contours. These days, I'm working on the fine lines on my face. Unfortunately, some of the lines are not so fine. But with these red light technology-based facials, I'm feeling a lot better about myself, and so is Matt Murphy. And I got to tell you, what they're going to do for you is they are going to target those areas that you hate, whether it's your belly, your arms, or your legs. Whatever problem area you have, they can solve that problem. It Contours, no pain, no surgery, no downtime, just results. And, I'm rather famous or infamous for falling asleep during my treatments at Contours. Now, real men and women from Franklin and all across Middle Tennessee have been checking out Contours and seeing real results. And so check them out today at 615-236-9960. First 10 callers right now get a special introductory price of just $99. And remember, you see results, you're satisfied, or it is free. 615-236-9960. Call right now. Find out more about Contours online. ContoursLLC.com. That is ContoursLLC.com. 829 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Text line is open. 615-737-9986. 615-737 WWTN. And Super Text line has been very active this morning. Thank you very much. Listen, if you missed perhaps the 5 o'clock hour, the 6 o'clock hour, trust me when I say I know that they start early. You can always check out our podcasts on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you get your downloads. You can always get them there. You can also always go to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, 99.7 WTN.com. I always go to YouTube if I want to check something out that I may have missed from earlier in the day. So you can do that as well. Lots of ways to catch Nashville's morning news after I get off at 9, which is thankfully for this morning in about 30 minutes. News with Jay Harper begins right now.
8:30, and I'm Jay Harper. I've got your top stories. Stand by for weather and traffic. It's day 41 of the partial government shutdown, and lawmakers still in a stalemate over how to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Funding for ICE was already secured in last year's big, beautiful bill, so Democrats are demanding that reforms to ICE get included. Republicans offered up a proposal to fund all agencies except ICE, but didn't commit to negotiations on the reform. So all but one Democrat turned it down. In turn, Democrats have proposed funding TSA alone, but that has been rejected by Republicans. So now we hear from Jay O'Brien about where things stand now.
We're told that bipartisan negotiations on that are still creeping along. And this morning, President Trump is now turning up the pressure on Republicans. In a post just moments ago, he once again called on Senate Republicans to eliminate the Senate's longstanding filibuster rule, something that Republicans have been rejecting now for months, and use that mechanism to fund the Department of Homeland Security, as well as pass the president's voter ID legislation.
Indirect talks between Iran and the U.S. are reportedly taking place and moderated by Pakistan. But the fighting's far from over, and Iran continues to block most maritime traffic from going through the Strait of Hormuz. We hear now from ABC's Matt Rivers.
Israel saying they have just killed the head of the Iranian Navy as President Trump looks to strike a potential deal with Iran. And here in the Gulf, 2 people were killed in the UAE after an Iranian attack. Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait also attacked overnight.
And back here in Nashville, we have a man who robbed a woman with a machete. This happened near downtown on Tuesday. Police say the suspect, Fred Johnson, he approached a 26-year-old woman at Shelby Avenue and South 2nd Street. This happened in broad daylight. This was like 10 in the morning. He demanded her stuff, and he later told police he just wanted money for drugs. Surveillance cameras captured the robbery. Police quickly got the guy. The woman's belongings were recovered and returned to her. He was charged with aggravated robbery, and at the time of this incident, the guy was out on bail from another arrest that happened back on March 15th. We now take a look at the stock futures. They are just now coming through as the bell, ring-a-ding-ding, has gone off. Let's go ahead and get to that for you. The Dow, it is down now, 309. Refresh. And the S&P, it is down 49. The NASDAQ down 226. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Jay Harper, WTN News.
Thank you, Jay. 8:33, Nashville's Morning News. Window Nation. Listen, this is my window company. It should be yours as well. If your heater AC is running more than it should, yeah, you got to call my friends at Window Nation, because what's going on is more than likely that your window's not exactly energy efficient. You can change that with my friends at Window Nation. They've got great energy efficient windows at an outstanding price. So right now is a great time to replace all the windows in your home. Now, the more you buy, the more savings you can enjoy with Window Nation. Right now, up to 50% off all window styles. That's 50% off all window styles, and they've got a ton. Now, be sure to ask about Window Nation's financing options, too, including $0 down and payments for as little as $199 a month. So many reasons to love Window Nation, By the way, remember, I've got 4 Window Nation windows in my home, including 2 in my basement studio. Now, they've got an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau, 96% customer satisfaction rating, and 45,000 5-star reviews. That is huge, so check them out, windownation.com, and remember the great deals for the month of March, up to 50% off all window styles, and you need to ask as well about their great financing options, including $0 down and payments for as little as $199 a month. Find them online, windownation.com. Tell them Dan told you to reach out, windownation.com.
All right. Let's go ahead and fill you in here. We have a crash on 440 westbound just past exit 7. Also 8th Avenue South at Wedgwood Avenue, a crash. Spence Lane and Lebanon Pike, we picked up a wreck there. And finally in Antioch, Old Hickory Boulevard south of Hidden Creek Drive. We've got your traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.838 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends, and welcome on in to the crisscross handoff.
What's up, dude?
Chris is here. Mason's here because we also had the producer handoff as well.
They pass a baton.
They do. They do. They do. It's a literal baton. The thing is, though, it's made of like soft plastic because that's all we could afford.
Yeah, it's for safety purposes, to be honest.
Well, it's like Play-Doh material.
Yep.
That's what it is.
I thought it was like one of those paper towel tube things.
Thank you, Jay. Yes,
okay.
It's like a paper towel tube thing.
We're not allowed to throw those out in my house.
No?
No, they're telescopes.
Yeah, yeah.
You get 2 of them together. You have binoculars.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So, what have you done with those? I'm going to tell you exactly what I've done with paper towel tubes. I have made lightsabers.
There you go.
Of course.
Naturally.
Little baseball bats.
Yep.
I will use a paper towel tube when my younglings were young, where we would take a piece of paper and hit it with a bat. All that kind of stuff. And there'd be times when they would just hurl them at each other as well. And then one would start crying. I remember one specific moment in my kids' lives where my son threw one, hit my daughter, and she started crying hysterically. And I'm like, here, Taylor, are we going to have to amputate? I mean, come on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's just like, stop it already.
Yeah. When my kids were little, we called them toot-to-doos because you would put them to your mouth and go toot-to-doo. Yeah. Anyway.
Toot-to-doo.
Yep. They became little horn things.
Flutes, maybe.
Correct. Perhaps.
Yeah. Very good.
An impromptu clarinet.
Now, unfortunately, when they get older, then you have no more use for them because they don't want to have fun with their parents any longer, which is what happens when kids get older. You'll get there, Chris.
We're not
get
there yet. I know,
but you're going to get there at some point. Dad will no longer be cool. Are you prepared for that?
Well, the nice thing is we have so many kids that I think it'll come in phases. So
okay.
I think that there will be. Kennedy's getting close to the point where Dad's not cool. But I have other ones that are coming up behind her that still think I'm cool. And I envision that by the time the last one starts thinking I'm not cool, the oldest one will start getting full circle again and being like, no, Dad was pretty cool.
That's where my daughter is. That's where my daughter. So what's going to happen with you is with Kennedy is you are going to get the Mandis eye roll where every time Kennedy sees me, she rolls her eyes. And it's become almost like a yearly tradition because she comes in on what day is it she comes in?
We try to get it around her birthday. I try to let the kids come in around their birthday. So December 27th, they're like around Christmas for Kennedy.
So December 27th-ish, Kennedy comes in the last couple of years, and there I am, and she just rolls her eyes at me. And it's always interesting. She always manages to get a ding in on the old man. I don't know. Whatever, it's cool. Listen, a good sense of humor is important in children, and I think that, basically, Chris, disrespecting one's elders is a great way to show your sense of humor.
I will let her know come December that you got to take it easy on Dan because he is still not recovered.
I'm still not recovered from last year.
Yes, exactly.
I love Kennedy. All your kids are amazing.
Well, thank you. I love them too.
We were talking about Sam and I, actually. You're a homeowner. Do you have a lot of grass?
Yeah.
You have mold problems?
No.
Sam and I... How do I say this? Sam can, I believe, be a bit overindulgent sometimes. So he's talking about how he's got, I guess, some highfalutin new lawnmower.
Okay.
And apparently he has a mold problem. And he says, oh, and I've got my gun strapped so that in case I see a mole, right?
Well, yeah, they're the most dangerous of all the lawn critters.
So I've had moles before, and I didn't have to fire a single bullet to get rid of my moles. I said, instead of firing gunshots, why don't you just put some mold poison out? Or what I did was I used a little sound. There's little things that you can put into their holes, and it's sound, and you force them into your neighbor's yard.
Oh.
There's no truth to the rumor that it's a tape of my show. Actually,
you hit him with the discombobulator.
The discombobulator, which would be my show. Anyway, moving right along. Set up this clip, Mason. We have audio, and this is something that Chris has brought to the table. And I did see this, and it's horrifying.
So this has been going viral across the socials, and it's a little bit infuriating on several levels. For starters, it is a U.S. soldier, and they're asking a question about how and when you would refuse orders.
Yeah.
The soldier has to be about 300 pounds, right? Am I wrong in saying that this soldier is pushing 3 bills?
Well, from what I understand, camouflage makes everyone gain a couple of pounds. Okay. However, make them look a little bit fatter than they are.
Okay.
However, I think 3 bills is, yeah.
So in this viral clip, it's only 12 seconds long. The soldier is eating... Is that fried chicken? Appears to be fried chicken.
That doesn't look like fried chicken to me because it looks...
No, you're right. You're right. String cheese.
Yes, that looks like string cheese.
Okay. Anyway.
Suffice to say, she's eaten a lot more than string cheese.
So there's the other issue. It's a female who's wearing a hijab.
Yes.
This is a Muslim soldier.
Mm-hmm.
The question that is framed in this viral video, politics, but would you refuse command if it said... towards Muslims.
Okay, so I'm going to play the audio.
Yeah,
All
go
right,
for it.
Here's the audio.
No politics, but would you refuse a command if it's said towards Muslims?
Now, she doesn't respond in the video.
Right.
But she does look at the camera and give a quick thumbs up.
Right. In other words, okay, so if she gets deployed to Iran and she ends up being, Lord help us, one of our ground troops, she is not going to look out for her brothers and sisters in the military. She is going to be protecting her Muslim brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Is what she's going to do.
Exactly. She should be removed from the military immediately.
Somebody needs to, well, for a number of different reasons. Do you remember the whole thing with Pete Hegseth and they were going to get our soldiers war ready?
Yep. She doesn't look ready.
She looks like a tank.
She looks ready for a buffet.
She does look like... Okay, I don't want to body shame, but you know what? If you're a soldier and...
Do you, I mean, seriously, you're giving the enemy a wide target.
That you are. And you know what? If she...
You're not going to be able to carry anybody out of danger.
I don't want to fat shame.
I'm not fat shaming. I'm just being realistic.
No. Nobody's going to be able to carry her out either.
Exactly.
So, but here's the thing.
You need 3 or 4 guys.
Here's the thing, though. One can grab each limb. But here's the thing, though, is that if you're in the military and you are that big, shame on the military. She's clearly not ready to be whatever it is that she is. I would be interested to know what role does she serve in the military? Like, because I can make an exception if it's somebody who flies a drone. I guess that's sort of, you know what I mean? See, I know, but you know what I'm talking about.
If you're an armchair
Yes.
quarterback back there,
if you are somebody, and
if you're just doing paperwork, not all military. I mean, I think the majority of military jobs aren't battle jobs, right? Like you're not in the line of fire.
Well,
There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that's happening.
Yeah, you got people that fix the Jeeps, and you got people that serve as, nurses, and they work in the military hospitals or the MASH units and that kind of a thing. So maybe she does something. I mean, clearly she can't be part of the battle team.
No.
But I think it's a bad look, and I do believe that she should be drummed out of the military. So, I'm reasonably certain that people have sent that to Pete Hegseth.
But I think it deserves a larger conversation here about where do your loyalties lie when you are a Muslim and you're in the U.S. military, and it seems like a lot of our battles have been overseas in Muslim countries.
Right.
Are you on our side or not? And I think that's a harder question. It gets uncomfortable, and people don't want to do it. But I think that as far as U.S. military goes and safety for the nation, those are the hard questions that we need to ask.
Well, and I would agree with you. And I don't know, you can just ask, okay, so where do your broader loyalties lie? And, they can say, well, with the military, but you never really know what their ultimate, goal or agenda is. And by the way, TB says, no, Dan, it doesn't matter what job you're doing. There are still fitness and appearance standards. Fair. I've never joined the military, so I don't know. What is the rule? Hey, Jay, what is the rule? I'm going to have Jay look it up. This is why Jay hates coming into the morning show. Hey, Jay, what is the rule? Do you know if somebody joins the military, but they've got a desk job, if you will, are they allowed to be obese?
Oh, gosh.
As of right now, the physical fitness test is strength, endurance, mobility, and speed. You have the typical tests are push-ups, sit-ups, planks, 1.5 to 2 mile run, sometimes sprint, drag, carry. Just looking at this woman, I don't think she gets through any of these.
Well, I'm wondering if those requirements will change now that the Army is allowing people up to 42 years of age to enlist now. Do you think they'll change those parameters?
Okay,
for the Army anyway.
I got 7679 who is saying fake, too fat to be in the Army. Then he says job doesn't matter, height and weight standards are the same. Fake video, he says. Then he says, geez, okay, ignore me. Ignore my insight. I was a company commander. It's kind of funny on the super text line. You can kind of see them starting to spiral when we don't see. You don't.
I mean, this has been going viral for 2 days now, and nobody's debunked it as fake. Like,
really?
If it had been fake, I think this would have been community noted to high heaven, and people would have been calling that out. And so I have not seen that this is fake.
If you hit Grok right next to the video, what does it say? Oh, I could do it myself.
It doesn't call it fake.
Well, if it's been 2 days and it hasn't been called a fake yet, then it's got to be real. But
And we have about 6,000 Muslim service members in the U.S. military per 2017 numbers. So the questions about dual loyalties are real.
It's absolutely real. It's absolutely real. I mean, we had the Fort Hood shooter.
Yep.
Remember that?
I do.
So, I mean, I think
Or wasn't the Old Dominion University shooter former military? Or am I confusing him with one of the other terror attacks?
I think you're right. I think you're right. Was it Old Dominion?
Yeah, Old Dominion.
Was it Old? He
was
was
a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. He was Muslim.
Well, he was Muslim, but I think he was also former military.
Yes, he was. Well, yeah, because that's how he knew how to get on. In fact, I think I made the comparison. Unfortunately, there's been so many.
I know.
Over the past, 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it's been. But,
just coincidentally, the same amount of time we've had a DHS shutdown.
Yep. Let's see here. I'm 6488. God, I got so many coming in now.
People be texting.
6488 on active duty. I was a senior medic, and I was responsible or in charge of the overweight program. And a lot of the times, all I need is a doctor's note excusing them for participating in a physical activity. And as long as that doctor's note or profile was active, somebody could be as big as a water buffalo. Really? So you could get a note?
Sorry.
It sounds like PE.
Can't work out. I got the diabetes. We know.
It sounds like PE. Remember when the girls would say, "Oh, it's that time of the month. I can't." Remember that?
Yeah. Nowadays, boys can get away with that too.
They can, as a matter of fact.
And again, quite a few public schools.
Chris, if we ever feel like not working, can we just say we're on our period?
I don't know.
We need to take a break.
Did you hear what they're doing in Baltimore?
No.
They're putting tampons in the men's rooms at Orioles Stadium and at Ravens Stadium.
Are you kidding me?
But the argument was about if they're adequately sized or not.
The tampons?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm just going to have to be honest. I don't know about sizing. Do they come in? I guess they would come in different sizes. I have no idea.
It's not my area of expertise.
It is. Ladies on the super text line, how many different sizes are there of?
I just sent you that clip on X. So it's like a City of Baltimore initiative that they're putting tampons in every men's room. And so the Republican in there goes, okay, so you mean the Ravens Stadium? And he's like, well, yes, of course. Like, you mean the Orioles Stadium? Oh, yes, of course. She goes, okay, in your initiative here, it says that they need to be adequately sized. Can you explain that? And I mean,
is that what this video is?
It feels like satire, but it's real life.
Here we go.
Menstrual hygiene products means appropriately sized tampons. What are appropriately sized tampons?
By the way, ladies are Republican.
I've never heard of such a thing. What do you consider appropriate?
It just means that tampons are offered. There's no specific size.
Well, apparently there's 4 different sizes, so which one would you like them to use?
Just a regular sized tampon in the bathroom.
Okay, maybe it should say that and not appropriately sized tampon. Now, is this going in all bathrooms, men's and women's?
Yes.
How about the Ravens Stadium?
If it is a state-owned building, then yes, it would go in. It's a public building.
Oriole Park?
Well, if it applies to the Raven Stadium, it would also apply to Orioles Park.
I guess Pimlico.
So clearly this guy is feeling uncomfortable. He is way out over his skis, and I like the fire that she's bringing.
I want them to put it in the team's locker rooms, too. We have to be fair. Who are we to deprive the Ravens and the Orioles, both of whom I've heard arguments made that those products are needed?
Have you now?
I have.
Okay, very good. Unfortunately, I'm sitting here thinking Joan is not an Orioles fan or a Ravens fan.
No.
No.
No, she's all Philly all day.
I've actually heard that what they really need in those bathrooms and locker rooms are condoms because they have a lot of illegitimate kids. What? I'm just saying.
Some of the family trees look like tournament brackets.
Okay, it is 8:54.
What?
We're just speaking truth, man. I don't know what to tell you. Was it the Titans, Jay, that they were on the cover of some magazine and they had like all those illegitimate kids way back when?
I believe you're right.
Was that the Titans? Mason, was that the Titans?
I think it was.
Gosh, Mason apparently wants to go work on the zone. He's not answering.
I'm
all right, go ahead. Man,
who it was.
I don't know if that applies here.
I'm just asking questions.
We're just asking questions.
All right, we got to go.
If they had him in Philly, they'd end up throwing him at Santa Claus.
All right, Jay, quickly, what's going on?
Yeah, Dan, well, you're going to be seeing some ICE agents perhaps at area airports as the TSA issue continues to be out of control. And a fire, it happened in Mount Juliet that unfortunately, a police officer's home destroyed by that fire. We'll have that and more coming up at the top of the hour on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Dan Meadows here for Stoltz Co., a great Tennessee company. They do continue to grow and expand. They do build pole barns at Stoltz Co., and that these pole barns, they can serve as a garage and event space, equestrian buildings, even barn-dominiums. You can live in these pole barns, and these days, when you go through Stoltz Co., those barn-dominiums are new and improved. Now, they're offering you turnkey options. That means that they handle the design, the construction, and the amazing finishing touches. You turn the key, and you are home. And again, your new pole barn from Stoltz Co. can be used as anything. You can talk about, equestrian building, event space, maybe, a man cave, whatever you want. You can do it with Stoltz Co. 615-622-5992, 615-622-5992, STOLTZCO, StoltzCo.com. You can also find them on Instagram and Facebook.